Yeah. Turn it up. Let it breathe. Talk that truth in it. Woke up Sunday, coffee black, truth on my mind, world gone sideways, can't tell wrong from right. Everybody shouting, nobody listening clear, then a voice cuts through like a bell in my ear. Said, hold up, truth ain't shaped by the crowd. Cut through the noise, don't follow it loud. Flip open pages, let the word speak first. If you build on sand, you bound to get cursed. It makes sense when the light breaks through, when the lies fall down, and you see what's true. From the mic to the soul, yeah, he keeps it tight, and they tip it. Talking truth in the night, it makes sense. Yeah, it all lines up when grace runs deep, and the truth ain't cut, no compromise, no watered down fence. Real talk, living like it makes sense. Yeah, diamond, ideas rolling, faith over fear, yeah, the truth stay golden. Culture try to twist what reality means, but Danny break it down like surgical beams. Not vibes, not trends, not whatever feels right. It's logic with a backbone, faith in the fight. Romans 14, when the people divide, he remind you who to judge, let that truth collide. See the world say blend, he say stand firm. Not hate, just truth, let the scripture confirm. No cheap grace, no pride in disguise, just Christ at the center, no compromise. Yeah, you can run from truth, but it's still gonna stand. You can build your life, but check what you plan. From the trial of Christ to the lies we defend, history speak loud if you listen again. Not here for clicks, not here for fame, just speaking that truth in the culture of games. New year, new hope, but grace stays the same. You don't start from scratch, nah, remember his name. Not hustle is holy, not chasing the grind. It's freedom in truth, yeah, we're new in your mind. It makes sense when the light breaks through, when the lies fall down, and you see what's true. From the mic to the soul, yeah, he keeps it tight, and he tip it. Talking truth in the night, it makes sense. Yeah, it all lines up when grace runs deep, and the truth ain't cut, no compromise, no watered down fence. Real talk, living like it makes sense. Yeah. Not everything true feels easy, but truth, it still makes sense.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of It Makes Sense. We are so glad to have you guys here. It is another episode in this series, America at 250, we're going to talk about today. We got our guest, Jim Davis, back with us again for our second time, our third episode. So we're glad to have you, Jim. Thank you for being here, buddy. Looking forward to some of the things you're going to throw out there for our audience today, because I know you got some good stuff, and there's a story there that you gave me a little bit of a teaser about something that you got to do. So I'm looking forward to that. Josh is behind the scenes with us right now. He is doing some things behind the scenes and just making sure we're staying up and running, because we can't do this without him. But you will not be able to hear a whole lot from Josh today. He is indisposed, but doing better things anyways. So we will miss Josh, but he was gracious enough to help me and Jim just make sure we were up and running tonight. Couple of things. Josh is a lot better at it than I am, so I'm going to share what I can share from my understanding. But I wanted to say this: this show is brought to you by the awesomeness of Revolver Broadcasting. It is a broadcasting organization that Josh founded. He has some shows on there. One that's the main show for it that he has done, that started all of it, FFP, Faith, Family, and Politics. We have got to know and love Josh through that. And he grew it into a nice little thing he's got going on here with several other shows. We've got quite a few shows on the docket. Let's see if I can pull up some things here to help give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we've got going on over here at Revolver. So again, like I said, be patient with me because Josh is much better at all of this. Look at that. He's already got it up and running. So what we got here, Josh, I'm going to look at my screen. And as you're doing that, we've got the podcast section, which is where you can find all of the podcasts underneath there, including yours truly. It makes sense. You can find all of the audio and video underneath that. You got Morning Word, which Josh and Sterling do every single day. Faith, Family, and Politics, the agenda with Christy. Oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher her name. Rizzotti? Josh, maybe?
That would be Crystal Rosati.
Crystal
Yeah.
Rizzotti, man. You know what? There's this zing that comes when you say that last name, and I was not getting the zing.
Yeah.
Crystal
Just think
Rizzotti.
Riz. She's got Riz. Crystal
There
Rosati.
we go. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So there's quite a few shows on there that you guys could check out the episodes. Josh does one called The Hangout that I really enjoy. He has all sorts of people on there that he's interviewed, and just get to know them. It's really just one of those you get to know. I was on there, and it's just, went through my story, and he does that with a lot of the other guys and girls that he has on the show. Also, we have the News Chamber over there with daily devotionals, prayer lists, which I'll get to in just a minute, news stories and assertions. If you go to any one of those minus the prayer list, you're going to get into some of our articles, things that Josh has put out there. I think there's a couple other authors that have written some articles. I've written a few on there, and I really encourage you guys to check out what is on there. If you like to read, they go a little bit more in depth in some regards, but if you like to read articles and blogs, that is the great place to be. One of the best things on there, though, and Josh, I'm just trusting you're pulling this up, is the News Chamber is our prayer list. And on that prayer list, we have where you can put in prayers. And we've got a list of all of these prayers that you can go through and pray for. And you can add your own prayers to the list. And it is something that I know Revolver Broadcasting faithfully prays over these. And we love to get answers, or at least find out updates and get responses to prayers, especially if it's something that we can say, hey, we can remove it as a prayer request, but we can add it as a praise report. So yeah, just go down there, fill out the contact us, and give us the information. You can give us as much or as little as you want. But we would love to pray for you guys. There is nothing, there is not a podcast out there, at least as far as I know, that really dives into this and honestly does it. They actually lifted me up in prayer too, and guys, it is amazing. In prayer, I mean, they say money makes the world go around. Prayer makes the world go around. It is the thing that God wants most from us, to communicate with Him, to come to Him and talk to Him, and not only ask Him for help, but also to praise Him and to tell Him thank you for all the glorious things He's done. So jump on that prayer list, pull it up. If you're our prayer warrior, please join us in prayer. Go through those. I know these people would really appreciate it. But don't forget to add your own prayers to the list if that is something that you would like to do. All right, we got the merch store. We want to do that one. All right, shop like a hot shot. Yeah, let me tell you, man, we got some cool stuff on here. I have on the yours truly, It Makes Sense podcast T-shirt. We have the agenda on there. We got mugs. Oh yeah, we got the mugs. We've got some cool things, more coming out. But man, there's some awesome. I don't have it on today, but there's a great selection of hats, and the one that is honestly, it's my favorite hat. It's the Make Bible Study Great Again. Man, I saw that and I was like, it's MAGA colors. And again, I won't tell you, I'm not like full blown cult MAGA. Okay, I do want to make America great again. But what happens when I wear this hat? And I get two reactions. One, I get the disgust look. Okay, right off the bat. Oh, look at that, and if they're willing to actually read it, sometimes they actually change their face. Sometimes they don't. They don't really care. Or I get the very quizzical, like that stare, like what does that say? Okay, it's got my eyes, and then they look at me, and I get so many compliments on this Make Bible Study Great Again hat. And so get the shirt. You can get the black and gold as well. All sorts of hats and mugs and T-shirts of all sorts of types and desires. Check it out. Get on it and put in an order. and have the swag of all swag. That's just how it is. The swag of all swag. So go check out revolverbroadcasting.com. And we're also, you see us, you're watching us on Rumble Live, we're on YouTube Live, we're on Facebook Live. Josh has been doing this a while and has gotten us out to all sorts of places. So go check us out. We appreciate you guys. And Josh usually has a great tagline that I can't remember. So you know what, Josh, we just miss you, man. Like you are a big part of what we do here. It makes sense. So shouts out to Josh. So if anybody in the chat wants to do a shout out to Josh, drop him a hi and a thank you and all that he does and all that he's doing. One of the things that I definitely would love for you to do is, if you like this episode, you've liked any of the past episodes, please follow us. Like, share with somebody that you think that this would mean something to. There's a bunch of other episodes I have. This is more along the lines of politics and things like that. But you know what? The biblical worldview does not stop at politics. It actually should be a major part of how we view and how we operate in politics. And so we talk about politics on here. We talk about all sorts of things. There's nothing that God doesn't have his hands in that we need to avoid talking about. So we will talk about everything, but I do have quite a other bit of shows that are a little bit more theological about doctrine and various things and cool little Easter eggs and stuff like that. So go check it out, like, share, follow, leave a comment. I love to engage. I'll go back and I'll look at the comments and respond to those that aren't trolling me and have fruitless things to say. I was looking at my other podcast that I do, and yeah, there were some things it's like, I'm just not even. Part of me that wants to really bad, but I'm just not even. Couple of things I do want to talk about. There's another podcast I do with my friend Zach and my son Daniel. It's called Table 42 Ministries. Now, right now, it's just me and Zach because Daniel's taking a hiatus because he's a football coach. And so it is about to be knee deep in football season. And he's also in school and has a bunch of other things going on. But usually it's three of us, and we sit around a table and we just go in and get into the Word. And we love to learn and research and study and bounce things off of each other in conversation and teach you what we've learned ourselves. Right now, we just got done doing Shadows of Christ in the Old Testament. We just went through a few books. We didn't do all because there's so much to do, but we hit a couple of books and little things here and there about some various shadows of Christ and Christophanies. What we're going to do coming up next week, we're going to record our next episode. It's not live, but we will be doing 1 Peter 3:15 and talking about apologetics. So I'm very excited about that because apologetics is near and dear to my heart. So yeah, Table 42 Ministries. We are only on YouTube right now, so please check us out. Partner of this, sister to this show, I guess I could say. And then also too, I want to bring some attention to this right here, and I do not talk about this organization enough. It is LifeWise Academy. If you do not know what LifeWise Academy is, I'm about to tell you. It is a release time religious instruction organization. It was Release Time Religious Instruction was founded in 1952 by the Supreme Court in a case called Zorak versus Clausen. And it was deemed that if parents give permission, if the funding for the organization is private and not through the government, and if the location that they do these classes are off-site, that is constitutional and allowed. And so we, with LifeWise in our district, we go and pick up kids from school when we get parent permission. We take them to a location. We teach them a Bible class all during the school day, not before, not after. We do it during the school day, and we get them back in enough time for their next class. So for give you an example, we do kindergarten through fifth grade, and we have 3 elementary schools, and we've got 66 kids enrolled in our program. There are some programs that are teaching 1,000 kids from public schools every single week. I know schools that aren't that big. I know a lot of schools that aren't my private Christian schools, K through 12, and it's not even 400. So imagine an organization of volunteers, people giving up their time, teaching, driving, guiding, leading, and organizing all of this to teach kids in public schools. There are 50 million public school students in our country. There are right now for us, just to give you a couple numbers and to tell you about LifeWise, we are serving 101,385 students right now. We are live. We have live programs, meaning in 34 states, and we are in 1,021 schools. We have confirmed, hopefully by the end of this year, to be in 40 states and 1,500 schools. So we are 10 states away from being in every state of the union. And by the way, Alaska and Hawaii are already have LifeWise programs. So if you have never heard of it and you don't have a LifeWise program near you, I suggest you look into it. It's called LifeWise Academy, and get one started. What are you doing? If you are a Bible-believing, Jesus-loving Christian, why don't you have one in your school district? This is one of the greatest mission fields in our country. It's right in your backyard. Yes, maybe you homeschool your kids, send them. We have homeschool students. Maybe you do teach your kids, you teach them Bible, they can't get enough, send them another day, We could also use some homeschool parents to help serve and volunteer too, just so you know. But it is well vetted, and there's a lot of things we have to do to jump through some hoops to be able to do this, but it is all legal, and it is something that we should be doing. It's been around for 70 plus years, and LifeWise has been around since 2019, and you see how big this has blown up. So I highly encourage you to check it out, LifeWise Academy. You can go to lifewise.org, and you can hear, read, and all about it. Got a great FAQ section too, because I can tell you, Jim, as a program director for a LifeWise chapter, it is one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had. And with what we've been talking about, America at 250, right? The Bible is the foundation on what we were built on as a country. We talked about that in the first episode. We went through what the founding fathers believed. We went through what state constitutions required. We talked about the Northwest Ordinance. We talked about the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. We brought up just a fraction of all the places God has mentioned. Christian principles are mentioned. We talked about conversation between founding fathers, and we just scratched the surface. Okay, but the Bible, man, it is key. And what we're talking about now. The last episode when we talked about, we brought up naturalism and secularism and atheism, and we talked about these various isms that are starting to infiltrate our country, and they aren't even really the threats, right? I'm going to tell you a cool stat that I heard, honestly, that it sort of shocked me, but it is a worldview shift we are seeing in our country. We are going from a shift of believing in biblical or Christian principles, right, now to a secular or a Barna did a study. Actually, I got a book from him. He actually was one of the speakers at the LifeWise Summit that I just went to recently. And man, let me tell you, that brother blew me away with all his study and research. He said that the 90% of our country, people in our country, according to his surveys and his studies, 90% or 95% seek out or in syncretism. I got to pull that up. It is a basically just in short, syncretism. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to say that right. It's a weird word. But in short, where I'm thinking maybe secularism or maybe even the growth of various religions like Muslim, but it's what I call the buffet of religions. You probably know some people, Jim, maybe. Anybody that looks at various religions and they just sort of buffet and pick and choose, like they're just going down the line with a plate and they're like, oh, I want a little bit of that, a little bit of that, right? A little bit of that. That is actually one of our biggest threats, right? Your mic isn't on too, by the way. There you go, brother.
Are we good now?
Yeah, there you go.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, have you heard?
Yeah, I do know somebody. I had not heard of the name for it, but I know a couple people that do what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was shocking to me how we not even 10% between Christianity, biblical worldview, and all other worldviews, that they don't even add up to 10% of our population, where more than 90% are syncretists. Like they just basically buffet and pick from various religions what they want to believe. And it makes sense though. Like it honestly does make sense. But it also goes to show the heart of humans, right? How We don't want to grab anything that's going to come into our purview that's going to make us change or make us feel uncomfortable. Like nobody wants to be uncomfortable these days. So yeah, go ahead.
Now, the uncomfortable zone is what we used to call it in some of the classes that I took, and that's where you learn the most. That's where you grow the most, is being uncomfortable. So
Yeah,
it's good to be uncomfortable.
it is. Growing pains, right? It's what every
Yeah.
kid has usually. Some worse than others, but it's a sign of growth. There's a little discomfort, especially when you grow fast. There's a little discomfort in growing, and it just doesn't happen without it. So we did all of that in episode 2, and we touched right there towards the end on Marxism, not just being an economic system. And I think we finished up with communism and just sort of talking about its history and just sort of the uh, the trail of blood that it's left basically in its wake over the past 20th century. And so today we are going to continue to move forward into where we are as a country. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about a lot of politicians here, and there's a lot of political talk that we're going to bring up. But um, also understand we're doing this because we are trying to help you understand from a biblical worldview how to understand these things. Because when we get to the end of this episode, particularly, we're going to be talking about the religious left, and that is probably one of the more dangerous ideologies that is coming after Christians. And there are legitimate biblical worldview, Bible believing, Jesus loving Christians that are falling for the words and the influence of this guy named James Talarico. But we're going to get to him last. It's going to really reveal some things. But let's talk about this first. I think it's been polled that, first of all, 1 in 3 Democrats now are in favor of socialism, right? That was a recent poll. It's also been polled that many young adults also have a favorable view of socialism, even communism. And so, why is this becoming such a thing? Because it's really a far left ideology, right? Marxism is a far left. I would say. Would you agree that most people in the Democrat Party are probably some kind of moderate to not maybe all the way left, but just sort of somewhere floating in the middle. And they're probably in their 30s, 40s, or 50s and above. Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
Yeah. It's interesting because in the past, I think we're seeing a paradigm shift maybe a little bit, because in the past, when you got older, you became more conservative.
Yeah.
Well, the baby boomers are becoming more radical.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, that's probably a whole other show on why that would happen. But yeah, I would say so, right, as we exist now. Yes.
I think that's an accurate assessment. And that's interesting too, because if the baby boomers are becoming more liberal, they're the ones that are teaching the next generations coming up, and that makes sense why they are actually becoming more liberal now. There is a number out there that you got men between 18 and 29 that are becoming more conservative, and there's even to some degree a slight kind of revival happening, where you've got young men that, especially when they're looking for spouses, are liberal women want conservative men want conservative women. And it's really hard because they are so opposed and diametric to each other that you can't even, like, it's like that true unequally yoked. But that's meant for Christian and non-Christian. Like, this is just your beliefs in your political beliefs, but that does get down to the root of your worldview. And that's sort of what all of this is about, right? Your biblical worldview is just not compatible. First of all, I will just tell you, it's not compatible with being a Democrat. The Democrat platform, like, you can pick and choose. Like, you can be that syncretist and pick and choose what you want from the Democrats and say, I am a Democrat, I vote Democrat. But if you look at the DNC platform, the Democrat National Platform, it is not Christian at all, not even one single bit, right? And so this is where some people fall in independence, or they're rhinos or they're neocons or whatever it is, but they're not. They're like, I can't go that far, right? Bill Maher just said recently, I can't go that far. It is absolute nutso now. Like my party is just lost their minds. Okay, we're about to talk about why, but it does seem, and we talked about this before we started the show. It seems like language is playing a very strong part in this. I don't think Republicans do very well with messaging. Democrats do amazing with messaging. They don't care what they say. They are the jokers of, to their Batman, they are the Joker to where they will say whatever, whenever, however, as long as it produces the most emotional response that they can get. So that way, when the facts actually come out, you're too deep in your emotions that you're not even really caring about the facts anymore. Right? I think one of the biggest questions that people ask is if these ideas are so unpopular, right? The Democrat ideas seem to be so unpopular. How did they become so influential? Why is this taking such root in our society today? And how can a relatively small group of people reshape an entire, maybe not an entire culture yet, but at least reshaping a party, especially with the primaries coming up? And we're going to go through that here in a minute. So here's some ideas. History is often changed by a small number of people. If you think about it, anytime there's a movement or a change, it starts with a small group of people, and they're deeply committed to their ideas. Revivals, revivals start in some of the darkest communities, situations, events. They are birthed out of this, like, it's so bad, it's so dark, it's so terrible that people are now so sick of it that somebody finally says, this is enough. We have had enough. And so they're going out there boldly sharing Christ, sharing the gospel, seeing people come to Christ in powerful ways. And then, you know what? It starts to create a revival. And then now we have a small group changing and influencing. It happens the opposite way too. Most people are doing life, right? They're raising families, they're working their jobs, living everyday life. A lot of people at this point are just fed up with politics. The news, the news has the lowest favorable rate or trust rate of anything right now. It's below Congress, which is pretty bad. Nobody wants to watch any of that. So they don't know what's going on. They don't know what people are saying. They don't know how crazy it is right now. And when it comes to their town, right, all of a sudden they're shocked.
Yeah.
It seems like small ideological movements, they spend decades just talking and pushing. Maybe they lose some ground, but then they don't ever quit. And this is what I think we've seen with socialism, Marxism. 20, 30 years ago, you would hear a couple of, Bernie's been around for a while. Bernie and you could give him a lot of credit for this because that dude, as old as he is, man, he has got the energy of a 25-year-old on Viagra. Like that, he is going. He is going. Okay. And he's is he in his 80s now? Like
80s.
late 80s?
I think he's 86, 85 or 86. Yeah.
You could sit back at this point, right? Sit back, retire, and just look around and go, I have done a good job. His persistence has created this atmosphere we're in currently. Agree?
Yeah, he's a true believer. And yeah, he's definitely the driving force up front for a long time. Now he's got a lot of not a lot, but he's got backup.
Yeah. It seems like he's almost handing the baton to AOC at this point. It sort of seems like, you know what, I'm pushing. No more presidential runs for me. None of this. Okay, I see the writing on the wall, but I'm going to keep spouting these things. I'm going to keep saying these things, and and as more and more people hear me, because Hitler even said, you say it enough times, over and over and over again, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, and people are going to eventually believe you. They're going to listen to you. They're going to accept your ideas. And that is exactly what we see happening right now. And he's been doing this for decades. He's in his mid 80s, maybe for 50 years at least.
At least I don't know if he's ever had a real job, like a non-governmental job.
It would make sense. That would track.
Yeah,
um,
real world, real job.
yeah,
Sorry to government workers, but yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you're right. And so when he's out doing that, right? And he's doing that in Congress. He's doing this on TV. He's going to rallies. He's pushing this wherever he goes. He's going to colleges and universities, and more people are like, that makes sense. That makes sense. Everybody should have free education. Nobody should be in debt. The rich are getting richer and richer, richer. Like all these emotional charges that he's putting out there and these emotional claims, and everybody else is just like, we don't live politics. I don't pay attention to that. I don't wake up thinking about political philosophy. I'm not reading Marx or John Locke, right?
yeah.
There's
But
some.
but
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No,
But here's how they describe it.
mhm,
The official program decides a future where people have no debt, no
mhm,
landlords, no private insurance, and publicly funded retirement. Food, energy, medicine, transportation, and education are nonprofit public goods.
mhm.
Work is meaningful, democratically controlled, and not tied to survival. And
Yeah,
capitalism is replaced entirely with a worker-run economy. That's
yeah,
all right. That's all. That's how they frame it. It sounds great,
yeah, man,
but I mean, it's wonderful, and
yeah,
they're playing on your emotions.
yeah.
There's no facts in here. It's all your
And,
emotion.
and I've always noticed they say it, they say it, they say it, but they never tell you how they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, right? And even what we're seeing with Mamdani, and we'll talk about him in a minute, in New York, like it's like, yeah, we're going to do this, and this, and it's like, we just saved millions of dollars. No, you didn't. You just shifted millions of dollars, and now you're taking it from here to move it over here, and you're having to dox people in order to get people to start to rise up. I mean, that's okay. We're going to get into him in a minute, but you're absolutely right. You've got people that just aren't paying attention, and I would say that would be most people. I did it. I was for a long time. I mean, I didn't really start to wake up until my 40s. I went a long time without really paying attention to it. But if we let it go, look, Christians step out of the culture circle, right? It's like, oh no, we don't want to be influenced by culture, so we're just going to remove ourselves from it. Right? We're going to just go in our little circles over here, and we're going to do our own little thing. And you guys do what you want. Like, social media evil. Don't get involved with social media, right? AI evil. Don't get involved with AI, right? I mean, like, yeah, these things can be used for bad. I mean, honestly, they can be. And there's some things about them when if you use them a certain way, they take away your ability to think, because you're depending on certain things in a certain way. And just like anything, right? Anything can become an addiction. But if we completely remove ourselves from things that really aren't inherently good or evil, it's the people that use them, then we're only giving Satan absolute sovereignty over those areas, until Jesus comes back. So why should we be shocked when culture is shaped not by the biblical principles, what God's taught us, but by the anti-biblical principles, everything that's the opposite of it, but masked with this, we got to be emotional and feel and care and can't offend and got to love, 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 and love is love and all those things, right? So we look at that, and then what's behind that culture shaping? Well, we have to look at institutions. Institutions absolutely are pushing these agendas. You got people, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you got people that have an agenda, and they've got money, and they start to use that money for influence, and that influence starts to shape various things. Look at our media. Our media, for so long, became more and more liberal. We start to lose what an objective journalist is, and now we become very liberal in our media. And then what's the response to that? We need Fox News. Fox News starts to become a thing, and now Fox News is people have issues with Fox News, and so now you've got Daily Wire, and then you've got Blaze Media, and you've got this, that, and then Newsmax, and all these little ones popping up because they need to be more conservative because Fox News is not conservative enough. And we have to fight the triple head ABC, CBS, NBC media moguls. Who cares about MS Now or whatever it's called now, and CNN? I mean, nobody really watches those in the first place. But it's just, if we don't look at there's something behind it, whether it's George Soros or whoever, there's money, there's institutions, they're driving this. And we need to ask these questions, like who is shaping the people before they ever vote. It's not about the vote happening at the moment. It's about what's happening up into the vote. Universities, you mentioned that, right? Depending on where you go to school, um, you know, I beg my kids, just please go to a private Christian school and even vet them before you go. My son went to a very liberal arts school over on the west side of Indiana. I won't mention it. Great school in some aspects, but when you walk on that campus, I mean, it's it's as liberal and as woke as they come. Everything from the little events they hold and the activisms and the rights and the protests they hold in the square to the bathrooms that say all genders. Um, you got public education, just public schools. This is why LifeWise is so important. Get those kids the Bible once a week at the very least. Entertainment, which is interesting, right? Entertainment. You got Angel Studios, man. It's really uh, making a buzz when it comes to the Christian um, entertainment arena. It's doing some really cool things. But what's Hollywood known for? Hollywood's been known for all sorts of craziness. News media, we talked about that. Social media, think people forget Elon Musk is probably still pretty socially liberal, right? But we got to give him credit where credit's due. He pushed for free speech, and he bought X, bought Twitter. Um, Publishing, people have not been able to write books because they're too conservative, too Christian. So you can't do that here. So we have to have Christian publishing companies popping up now, and it's almost like Christians have to do their own thing in order to do their own thing, because it's getting out now, like if you stand on this, if you say this, if you write about this, you are not welcome here, but yet everybody is welcome. Not everybody. Law schools, courts, bureaucracies, the health profession. When you
Have
get
you
the, Go ahead.
have you ever heard them explain why there's so many Democratic, why the legal profession is so liberal? Have you ever do
Well,
you understand the cycle that it goes through? Like it goes at a higher level, higher
okay.
echelon. So
Okay.
they go to work for Joe Biden.
Hmm.
They go to work for a year. Then
Yeah.
they go out and they get into some left wing legal job, make a bunch of money, go
Right.
back and they work for Joe Biden again for 2 years, come back out. So it the Washington D.C. is so liberal over the years. It's become so liberal that it's just like a revolving door for the Democrats. Whereas a conservative, like if you work for Trump, you're not going to work for very many law firms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's hard to build the same. So it's inside of government,
Hmm.
bribe them and give them a really good job outside of government.
Yeah.
Inside of government, outside you make your money again, and this is a revolving cycle, and it's not available to conservatives at this
Yeah.
point.
It makes sense too, because I mean, think about most of your major law firms are all in urban settings, urban cities. The only people that can afford them are the rich, and a lot of the CEOs or celebrities, people that are in urban areas, and even like your public defenders, also mostly in urban areas. And usually, you're looking at lower income people that are dealing with them, and so people that say, "Hey, I'll become a public defender because I want to help the small person, the small fish." Typically have come out very similar situations themselves. So, I mean, that makes total sense. And in the schools, I mean, Harvard Law School, formerly was founded as a Christian private school. Now it's one of the most liberal law schools in the country. Columbia, maybe I'd say Columbia is more liberal than Harvard. You got the major law schools are the most, Ivy League schools. That whole group of schools are some of the most liberal in the country. Uh, and also too, and I know some people might have a hard time with this next statement I'm about to make, but we're also seeing a lot of women going into these fields, and there is something to be said when there is a lot of emotions that go with what a woman brings to the table. I'm not saying they can't be a good lawyer, they can't be a good argue well. I mean, I know one woman argues very well. But it's this idea of the facts. When you have a judge that is a female who says, you know what, I feel for this guy. I just literally convicted of a violent crime. Well, now ICE is outside the door. I'd rather let him go free than give him over to ICE. So I'm going to walk him out the back door. Like, that's an emotional decision that you're not going to see probably. Well, there are some guys that would make that decision, but it's just less likely, And so we see more females in the law profession, in the medical field today than we have ever seen. So that's not everything. It's more complex than that. But again, we're looking at a part of our society that most women, most of the movements that we see, as far as like Black Lives Matter or DEI, they're being pushed mostly from the female side. And again, it's because there is an emotional charge, because they for better or worse, they feel for the people that they believe are victims. I understand that. I get that. But we have to remove our emotions when we are talking about, especially criminals, and letting them go, because we're like, I don't think it's fair. I think they've had an oppressed life, and I don't want to be the oppressor. And so I want to make sure that I'm fair for them. It's like, no, what about the victims? What about the family who has a daughter that's been raped and killed by an illegal, who has been let go 5 times already? It's just, it's hard to see, but it is something that it's real. It's actually a real thing. You got louder voices on the left, not necessarily more. I believe. I think you just got louder voices, and the loud voice usually wins out. And when you have more influence in the media like they do, then you're definitely going to. I mean, it's not really media. It's not really any kind of journalism actually happening. It's propaganda. And I think that goes both ways. I think that goes on both sides. I would love to see more journalism, actual journalism, on the right as well. But look, if you're calling yourself, hey, I'm an opinion writer. Well, then that's fair. I get that. Just make sure that you're not lying about your numbers and your stats when you're bringing out actual facts. So it's really no wonder, when you control the language, you win the argument. So here's a couple examples. The left has learned that, hey, if we can say these things, then we can sort of look over these things. So, for instance, equality. Hey, equality is a great thing. We need equality. People, we're all humans. We all are equally deserving of the privileges that are God given. Okay, I'm just going to go as far as that. Okay, God given, right? But equality has become equity. And now it's about everybody coming out at the end in the same place, rather than, hey, having equal opportunities and resources to get where as far as you can go. Man, Jim, do you know any lazy people?
Oh yeah.
Do you know any people that didn't really try in school?
Yes.
Right. Hey, I'll be honest with you. I could have been an AB student. I was a C student. I did not apply myself. Right. But you know what? If I was smart, maybe, or if I had lived now and I could have the SAT taken away and I could get entrances, as long as I'm, of a certain persuasion, maybe skin color, that I can get the things that I need, but just be lazy at what I'm doing, and not earn any way towards that. Allow me to, like they did, I think it was just in Oregon or Washington, where she said, you know what, we're just going to take away all these tests. And so that way it's just sort of racist when we do that, when we test our kids, especially the brown, the people of color and things like that. Like, it's just racist. It's like, no, it's not. We're only hurting our own culture, society, community when we choose to put equity above equality. Tolerance is not tolerance anymore. It's affirmation. Freedom is more about autonomy. Justice is about redistribution, right? Women, what's a woman? Matt Walsh asked this question in a brilliant documentary. What is a woman? Well, what? I don't know. I mean, we had a Supreme Court judge said, I'm not a biologist. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that should be actually a requirement now for a Supreme Court justice if they're going to be put in, that they need to know the difference between a man and a woman and what
Yeah.
a woman is.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you decide? How can you decide the Title IX
Yeah. There's
if
no
you don't
way.
know? She should recuse herself because she
Yeah.
doesn't know. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
being a little ridiculous, but you get the
no,
point.
no, no. You're abs. I mean, no. It's honestly, it is a valid point. It is a valid point. If you're judging on something specific as Title IX, that is for women to have their own spaces, to have their own sports, to be able to have the things that they need to do the things that they do when they can't do it in the male dominated spaces, right? There should be a separation. They're different than we are. But when we say a man is not different than us, and I had said this the other day in a little Facebook post, I said, it doesn't matter if every single male athlete who identifies as a woman is last in every single event they do. It doesn't matter. I don't care if they're better or if they're worse. The point is, they're men. They're not supposed to be in women's
Right.
sports. They're men. So when you say, "Oh, you know what?" People are saying that men are dominating women. No, they're not. When you look at the numbers, yada yada yada, and it's like, I don't care. I don't care. That's not the point. The point is, if we allow it just simply based on their identity that they want to have, then we are giving in to saying a man can be whatever he chooses, a woman can be whatever she chooses. And really, there is no such thing as a man or a woman because nobody knows what a man or a woman is. Um, so that's been abolished, right? That's just been absolutely destroyed on the left. And it's really coming to bite themselves in the rear end. And then you've got marriage. And let me go back to the thing they did in New York not too long ago, where they said that a is it called a birthing parent?
Oh
They
yeah,
changed the
yeah.
name of mother and father to birthing parent or something like that, right?
Birthing person and non-birthing person or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
That's how
right.
they have to call them. That's how they have to speak of them in the legislature now.
Yeah, that's just that is allowing just saying, you know what, truth does not matter, reality does not matter. We have to affirm people based on a fantasy. So if you redefine the words, you eventually redefine reality, and the public mind, it will be altered forever. And then you got gaslighting. Oh my gosh, I was talking to the teacher today at my school who's teaching the critical thinking class, and she was talking about, say, are y'all going over logical fallacies? And she goes, yeah. And I said, doesn't that sort of change though from one era or decade to another? Sometimes some logical fallacies are more prominent than others. She said, yeah, that does. And I was like, she goes, you can look at some that are sort of long standing. I said, I bet one that you do talk about is gaslighting, because man, oh man, oh man, oh man, that is a huge, huge, huge fallacy. And it was interesting when I learned where that term came from. What was an old movie called Gaslight, I think it was, but it was an old movie. It might have been 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. So it was old, it was an old movie, and basically the premise is there was this husband and wife, and the husband would every so slightly start to turn down the gas in the house, which would turn down the lights, and it would dim it. Well, he would sneak out at night. He would go and crawl and find a way. I guess it was into the attic where the gas valve was, and he would turn it down every single day, little bit by little bit. And his wife would get up, and she would go, "Aren't the don't the lights seem a little bit dimmer today?" And he was like, "Honey, I don't know what you're talking about." And he just kept doing this over and over and over again. Now I can't tell you exactly how it ended, but ultimately he gaslit her, right? And that's where the term comes from, to say you are seeing it happen, but I'm telling you it's not. No matter what your eyes tell you, don't believe it. And so people start to question their own judgment, right? Because they're repeatedly told reality is something different than what they're actually seeing. And
You can go back to the communists, like in their books, they would just remove the picture, like cut somebody out of a picture and then reprint the book and make everybody throw the other book out. because that person doesn't exist anymore and they never existed. So if they never existed, then we didn't kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's crazy. And we saw some of that, a lot of that actually in the last administration,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Rewriting History, 1619 Project,
yeah,
which she's still getting accolades for that on the left. But I mean, actual historians are like, even ones that aren't even, they're Democrats have even said like, no, half of what she's saying is a lie. The other half is misinformation or disinformation.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
this woman has completely lost her mind when it comes to the founding of our country.
Yeah.
So
But you have places teaching her version and not the other one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
I mean it's frightening.
That's why I was so happy, DeSantis banned it in Florida because they were trying to teach it there, and it's like, no, I'm not doing this. So Christians, we shouldn't be surprised, right? We look at the Old Testament, we look in the Bible, we can see the serpent influenced Adam and Eve, right? He deceived them, 10 spies. They deceived a whole entire nation to not go and conquer the promised land when God has promised it to them. And like, you know what? We know better. God doesn't. You got the false prophets that led Israel, Jezebel, who completely, was able to just influence an entire kingdom. You got the Pharisees, okay, and then you got others on the good side, like Noah, in the midst of all the craziness, stood by himself. Gideon trusted God with 300 men in his army to take on an entire nation. Elijah, he cried because he thought he was so alone, which God, reinforced. No, you're not quite alone. There's a remnant, but for the most part, he was pretty depressed. But he stood he stood there. And 12 apostles, man, you think about it, 12 apostles, their leader was killed. They had no armor. They were not an army by any means, stretch of imagination, but they changed an entire empire. And you got so many people in the early church that continued on with that. And so you have this small remnant that is in some ways, in a lot of ways, we're still a small remnant, still making waves. The Bible's still around, and we're still influencing people, leading them to Christ. So let's that's pretty much the short and simple of it, right? This is why people fall into it. It's what are you listening to? Are you trying to say, okay, I hear you, I'm going to double check that. Like that is something we have got to constantly do. I listen to a pastor once a week regularly, and there's things that he says. I'm like, I'm looking that up. Now it so far has turned out to be true, but I don't care how many times he is right. I'm still looking it up. I'm still going to fact check him. I'm still going to make sure, because one of the things I don't want to happen, and if it does, okay, I will take back what I said. I'll apologize for it, and that will happen inevitably because I'm not right about everything. But I want to, as best I can, make sure what I'm saying is accurate, is based as much truth as possible, and that I'm not saying something based off of what I was able to construe from it. More or less, I want to say something as best I can that I understand it, and at the very least, I can have a conversation about it and learn still more as I'm going through it, and be wrong at the same time. So we have to make sure, as a nation, as people, we've got to continue to help people think. Trust but verify. Trust but verify. Always keep trusting and verifying. And on top of that, for a believer, for a follower of God, if you are not in the Word of God, studying the Word of God, and leaning on the Holy Spirit's voice to tell you when a lie has been told to you, then you will not recognize it. You'll be deceived, just like Adam and Eve, who actually walked with God. That's the insane part. Like, who do we think we are that we can just open up our Bible once a month, go to church, every other week, not ever spend time with any of our Christian brothers and sisters in Christ, and go sit at the bar and get drunk, every Friday night, and then think that we're better than Adam and Eve, who actually saw God, walked with God, was created by God in the very beginning, walked in the Garden of Eden, saw all of this stuff happening. Like, who do we think we are, that we are any better than they are, and yet they were still deceived by Satan? So we have got to be very careful with that. So, all right, man, help me out with these this DSA, the Democratic Socialists um,
Yeah.
of America. Like, help me
Yep.
out with this, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess a couple of things. We can go over their policy platform here. I've got it in front of me. And the other thing is, you and I talked about it for a minute. They're not hiding what they're all about anymore.
Oh,
They're very upfront as to what they want to do because I think they think, as you said, you made a point about they're doing really well against the moderate Democrats, or and so they think they're going to be fighting the Republicans here because they're going to win that Democratic Party, and
yeah.
it's coming. But here's what they believe in. One, a 32-hour work week with full pay and benefits, universal health care at no cost, free education from pre-K through college, housing is a human right. Notice all these things are given from the government, not from God.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Public ownership of basically every energy infrastructure and utilities, reparations in neglected communities,
Mm-hmm.
long-term goal of abolishing police prisons replaced by civilian-run systems and health-based approaches to addiction,
Mm-hmm.
open border.
Mm-hmm.
Foreign policy is a working class foreign policy. They talk about getting rid of the president. They talk about getting rid of the Senate, and minimizing the judiciary or the Supreme Court, and having a big kind of House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
And inside that House of Representatives, we would have foreign people inside the House of Representatives from nations that we have taken advantage of. So they'll be helping to decide our laws. So basically, we go from God-given rights to government-given rights.
Yep.
And our Constitution goes away. They're going to rewrite a new Constitution, probably very similar to what Stalin did in 1936.
Right.
So that's the DSA.
That's their own words.
That's their own words. That is their party platform. You can go to their website and read exactly what I said, plus a bunch of other stuff. So
let's talk about some of these people in the DSA because let's see, did I end up putting that up there yet?
Yeah, and Bo, nobody's paying for all of it.
No, nobody. Well, the government, right? But
Yeah.
the government isn't taking money from anybody else, right? I mean, it's just the government because they can just print money however they want.
Yeah.
Because taxes will never be raised on the poor middle class. It's only on the rich because the rich can afford it, right? It's all right. So, okay, you've laid it out there for us. So let's talk about a couple of quotes here from the DSA's own 2024 program. They said, "A true democracy where working people have control over their own lives." That sounds pretty okay. All right, I got you. Their own government and the economy. Okay, sounds great. A little animal farmish, but yeah, that sounds great. Okay. They also say, as socialists, our goal is to defeat the right and build a real democracy. Now, I get it that so democracy is one of those words that a lot of people don't understand what it means, and we may have democratically elected people in this country, but we are a constitutional republic, and we don't even run off of a majority. When it comes to we elect electorals for the electoral college, and they're the ones that really decide, right, who's going to be our president. It may happen in a more of a local sense and a statewide sense, but when it comes to our federal government, we don't have a majority. If we did, man, there would never be a Republican in our country ever, because if you look at all the urban areas where most of the population is, those are largely blue areas of our country. and so they're going to pretty much run everything. And so that's what they want, though, right? They want to get rid of the Electoral College so that way they can run our country. And they act like they want things to be fair, but absolutely not. Okay, so you had mentioned the DSA. They want to take democratic socialism. They define it as extending the democracy, and so it's not just in the voting booth. That's where it stops right now. But they want it to go into the economy, the workplace, corporate governance, and then the broader cultural life. Okay, so it is literally, like you're saying, a takeover. And one of the key phrases that you hear when you hear these people talk, they'll say the phrase economic democracy. And that's when we talk about democracy, we're talking about when we're doing our elections or we're voting and those types of things. So that all sounds nice, okay, but there's a lot of issues with that. We see things going to be moving into business, private property. Go ahead and get rid of that. Government-run businesses, just like Mamdani wants to have 5 government-run grocery stores that he admittedly says will operate at a loss in the state of New York. How's that going to happen? Well, they're going to be subsidized, and guess who's going to pay for that? The people in New York. New York City.
The other interesting things was he was asked how they would make sure that there isn't any fraud, right? How you don't have the right, how you got people that don't belong there getting the groceries. ID.
Yeah. And isn't that ironic? Wow. Okay. Wait a second. You got to have an ID to get something, to do something? Oh my gosh. The irony is amazing, man. It's dripping.
It is.
So yeah, if we want to think, okay, this goes beyond the voting booth, and we're going to see it in every area of our life. We got to think of what are those areas of our lives. So where we live, our houses, right? Our education, which is already happening, healthcare, transportation, and again the culture. But every major institution is going to be affected. And what do we have? So I'm going to share this real quick. And this is a map of the current situation that we have with some candidates that are DSA endorsed or associated with. And let's see here. We've got over here in Oregon, and it may not seem like a lot. And of course, I got Georgia way over here because this is ChatGPT doing some of this for me. But we have in Oregon, we've got 2 DSA candidates, or 3, Tammy Carpenter, Kai Fireside. Some of these things I'll probably butcher. Farah Chai-Chi, Val Thomason in Nevada. Georgia is Gabriel Sanchez, Matthews Sampson, Oliver Larkin, and Richie Floyd in Florida, Andrea Parr, Robert Leverts Bell, Chris Rabb running for U.S. Congress, CC Gerlach, and then Taiba Sultana in the Senate, Adam Bojack in New York. And we've already got Zohran Mamdani, and there's another one as well there. I can't remember her name.
There's 3 actually in New York City that all won at the same time.
Gotcha.
I can't remember their names.
Yeah, this is an old list. This is like an old list in terms of like it's not even been updated in the last week.
Yeah.
And then Michigan's got 2, Vermont's got 1. I've got a list here that I'll run down. Let's see, Chris Rabb, Oliver Larkin, federal. They're running for federal, U.S. Congress, Pennsylvania and Florida. Gabriel Sanchez, Matthew O. Sampson, Michigan, Nevada, Kentucky, Vermont, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Florida. And all of these people are running as DSA endorsed, which means that if it's DSA endorsed, then they align with what the DSA says. So we're looking at people getting to positions of power that will be voting in a manner that is anti-capitalist, anti-America, and I would even say anti-biblical. Why is this important? This is what they're running for: city councils, state legislatures, Congress, and local governments, which means those offices will have control and influence over taxes, zoning, education, housing, policing, budgets, labor policy, public health, and pretty much everything else under the sun. if they get in, they get through these primaries, which many of them are and have, and they end up winning office. Like we're looking at James Talarico really giving Ken Paxton a run for his money in Texas. Um, they get into office, and we're looking at either a lot of stonewalling because they can't get things passed, or we're going to see the landscape of several of these states change.
Yeah, and we have to, if we lose the Senate, we're going to have to hope that there's some moderate Democrats that hold the line, which I don't know that there are any anymore that will do that, because they're going to wipe out the filibuster. That'll be gone on day one.
Yep.
So,
they'll wipe out the filibuster. They'll do their best to try to pack if they get a Democrat president after the next term, which I do find that one pretty difficult, that will happen. But
yeah. You know what, Danny? I forgot about. Let me go through kind of the structure real quick and just jump us back for just a second, because the DSA is a huge tent.
Yeah.
It goes from what they call the reformist or the party building caucuses. So there are caucuses, which are little groups inside of the DSA.
Right.
And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that fall under reformist or party building caucus. That would be the least revolutionary. They would have the least impact on our government. But remember, these are all under one roof.
Right.
Then you would have the revolutionary or Marxists. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those as well, calling for one called Red Star. And the Red Star caucus inside the DSA wants a civil war immediately. They want it right now. They're ready to go. They're ready to go fight. Then you have the anarchist / libertarian. There's a couple of those.
Right.
So this is a group of loosely kind of affiliated people that they're all trying to pack into one group. It's not a political party. It's a group.
Right.
So it's sort of like Antifa, where there's not a, you know what I mean? There's not a lot of, so it's a loosely structured thing, and their caucus could change, or their beliefs could change if a caucus takes more control.
Yeah.
Right. So if you get another Marxist Leninist revolutionary caucus, they could get even more radical than what they are. If that's, I mean, it's possible, but hopefully not likely.
And that's sort of the thing that we discussed was, socialism is, you look at some people like, well, that didn't happen in Denmark, or that didn't happen in Sweden. Well, it's because they're not actually socialist. They're not even. There's capitalism still rules the day there. Okay, there's a lot of people that still have private property and still operate in the private sector. Largely, there's some aspects of it, that you can say maybe the socialist concept is applied in this kind of economy. But when it comes to actual socialism, it's just never not enough. Like anybody that wants to say, "Hey, we want a full-blown socialism in our country," you're going to have Venezuela. You're going to have, you're going to have Lenin and Stalin. You're going to have totalitarianism. You're going to have Cuba. You're going to have. I mean, it just never ends well, and it always ends up in totalitarianism. That's where it always goes, because it's just never enough. We can't do enough, and and it gives all the control to really a small minority. It always blows my mind how people want to rail on what they don't understand is you want to rail on corporations. You want to go after the man when it's the trillionaire now, or the billionaire, or whatever. It's like, we just can't have it. We don't need this. We shouldn't have this. You know what? I don't have to purchase anything from them. But if it's government, and if you don't do what they tell you to do, you get put in jail. You get fined a hefty fine. You get taxed. Oh, that sounds familiar. You may not get fined, but you'll get taxed, right? Like, government doesn't say you can choose, no. When government's in control, government will control. And that's what these people want. I've told people that sort of, well, my Democrat friends, I've said, think about this. You say that you're not the party of the wealthy. You guys have got billionaire donors coming out the wazoo. I don't even try to lie. But with that, you also see quite a few people in the Democrat Party or even in the Republican Party that were CEOs going into politics. Why would they leave where they're making so much money and go into something that is less lucrative, obviously, unless you're Joe Biden, or Nancy Pelosi, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But why would you go into that? Because money does get you so far, and it can get you influence, but legislation and policy get you power and control.
Yeah. Hey, Danny, give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
D Greg's TV has just rated our stream on Rumble.
Oh,
Thank
thanks,
you.
man.
Thanks for rating us. Much appreciated. Welcome to all the raters. Please, if you'd like, follow or hit the like button there for us. We really appreciate you coming in and are looking forward. If you have any comments, please feel free.
Thank you. Appreciate that, guys. And thanks.
Oh, you're on Twitch. My bad. My bad.
Oh man, love it, love it. Thanks for keeping an eye on that, Jim.
You bet.
I got 20 screens pulled up here, and I'm trying to look at everything. Man, you're doing a great
good.
job.
Yep.
Appreciate that. So,
Sorry.
okay. No, you're good. You're good. So you got the DSA. They're really making inroads into the Democrat Party. Okay, so much so that you got Bill Maher complaining about it on the show. And when Bill Maher started to complain about it, I always if you're not going to listen to other people, are you going to listen to Bill Maher? I sort of wish, I know George Carlin was a political comedian, and my dad has loved to use him against me for things he said. And you know what? Some of that stuff makes sense. I get that. But man, I wonder what he would be thinking right now. I wonder what his thoughts would be right now.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at Bernie Sanders, AOC, and like this normalization of this Democrat socialism. Okay, you got Bernie did not invent this, so let's go ahead and just put that aside. This has been around for a while, and I really hate that they throw democratic socialism on the front of it. It's just making it flowery and sound a little bit more appealing and palpable to people that maybe aren't that far when it comes to, but it's not socialism, it's democratic socialism. So that is better. So we get the best of both worlds, right? Like, no, you're not. Like what you just read is socialism. Nothing democratic about that. It is socialism. And government is in control of everything. There's no workers that control anything unless you are in the government. That's the only way. And so you got the government being the biggest employer and expanding all the time in influence now. But it's definitely not democratic. It is socialism. Let's just go ahead and
it's communism. It's communism.
It's communism. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Because they're talking about controlling the means of production.
Yes.
So anytime as soon as you hear that, that's communism.
Yeah, definitely a Marxist point. I think it was I think it was actually Matt Walsh. I was listening to him just on this last episode, maybe, and he goes, you got all these DSAs that are popping up and everything, but as soon as they open up their mouth, it's like the Communist Manifesto just falls out. It's like the language is there, it's all there.
Yep.
So you're right. So Bernie, basically he shifted the conversation. He shifted it from socialism to government control to redistribution, using fairness as some language, right? Trying to do it through healthcare and education. He talks a lot about billionaires. He tax the billionaires. We need economic justice, right? There's got to be a political revolution. You just talked about one of the factions that they're pretty hardcore. Like they, like you said, I heard about them. They want a civil war
today.
Yeah, right now.
Today.
Like they're preparing for it. Yeah. As soon as they get the chance, right? But his messaging of socialism, it sounds a lot less like the Soviet Union and more like compassion. And I think that's the key. It's that messaging, right? It's like he knows how that sounds. He knows that communism is bad in Russia. But you know what? I'm different. I am not Stalin. I am not, those guys over there. I can do this. I can do this. Like I've got the right ideas. I can take socialism and make it right. But what people don't get, I don't even think Bernie may or may not believe this. It's not the person. It's not the person. It's the platform that drives a person. In order to do what you want to do, you've got to implement those things. And so the platform itself is rotten. It's rotten to the core. And in order, you can't control something like that. If you're going to follow through, it's the same idea. We'll get into Islam, but true Islam, true adherence to Islam is violent. It was built on warfare, and yeah, you can pull a couple verses out here and there in the Quran that talk about peace, but you need to go back to all the other stuff and understand the context and how a lot of that was written by Muhammad. So like you're not doing your research on it because it's not the people, which it is the people to some degree, but it's the understanding of the platform that says, okay, oh, I can tame this beast. And when you get into it, it's like, no, I can't. And by that time, you're already in too late. You can't get out of it. It's going to run on its own. It's going to do its own thing. You've already taught the masses, indoctrinated the generations, and those generations are coming behind you going, this is how we're doing it. This is the best way. Sanders openly identifies as a Democratic Socialist. He's never gotten back from that or back down from that. 2015, in his Georgetown speech, he laid out his vision for democratic socialism and argued that government should play a much larger role in addressing economic inequality. And I mean, he's doing it way before 2015, but you get this turn around when you get 2015 to 2020. This is where you start to get all this young crowd really latching on to Bernie. So if you're listening to this, right, think about when you hear the word socialism today, do you picture breadlines or do you picture free college? Like, yeah, I can't speak for those listening, and maybe you're much more conservative than you might not be a liberal listening to this podcast, but ask somebody that is much more liberal. Do they think of bread lines wrapped around the building, and by the time you get there, either the bread's rotten or it's gone, or do you think of free college? Because man, I tell you what, I would love for my $40,000 of debt to be gone today.
Yeah.
Sounds compassionate. He says, and if you don't, because if you don't have an accurate understanding of what socialism brings to a country, most people don't know that.
Well, here's what and they talk about this as well in the DSA talks about it, collectivization and collective farming. Well, collective farming caused in both China and in the Soviet Union a lot of people to starve to death.
Millions.
And they were mostly farmers because they said, hey, this is your goal. This is your quota of food that you have to produce. This is what we're going to come take for you. If you didn't meet your quota, they took all your food and you didn't have anything to eat.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, you had to produce more than what they wanted in order to feed your family. And so these are the types of things. It's not, it's very cut. It's very, very cut and dry. Yeah. What's going to happen to you. And it's very, very, the government is telling you how you're going to interact with it versus kind of, we have some choice today.
Yeah. Yeah. All that stuff goes out the window. I have a buddy of mine who's Canadian. He talks about how it's, healthcare up in Canada is terrible. A lot of people have to come to the United States for special procedures and things like that. And the waiting lines are ridiculous up there. And, but you know what? You don't have to pay for it, but it's just an example, like quality goes away, quantity becomes scarce, and the government's just not built for that. Never was, never will be. The Bible tells us exactly what government's for. It's just to mete out justice, make sure the rights are being right and the wrongs are caught in justice coming to the wrongs. But it's a utopian idea that will never happen, because as long as humans are alive, there will never be a utopia without God. You got another one. Now, this is the younger version of Bernie, right? AOC. All right. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. AOC is the younger version. I think she is just as good at word salads as Kamala Harris. And she tries to present herself as really smart, and she's not. And I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, if you listen to her talk when she is bringing up, when she sits on her panels and she's trying to argue with somebody, it's like, almost every time she is put in her place, and she looks stupid, and it's unfortunate that she keeps getting reelected in her district. It makes me wonder about the people in her district in New York. But she advocates policies that include stronger social safety nets. The Green New Deal was like her beauty, her dream thing. Expanding public health care, tuition-free public college, higher taxes on top earners, like all the same stuff, right? But everything's got to be done through federal programs, federal spending. There's going to be federal guarantees, federal regulation. Um, all of that just says we have no say in it. We're going to have no absolute say in it. We can't. We're not going to be able to vote our way out of this one either. If we turn into a socialist society,
It's over.
it's over. There is no voting anymore. Now, matter of fact, they will probably just do away with elections and start appointing people like they've done. And again, what do we say ends up? Ends up in dictatorship or totalitarianism. It ends up in communism, and it's whoever's the strongest survives. And yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Josh said she hesitated for 53 seconds to answer a question on a live stage interview recently. AOC is brain dead. I think that was the foreign policy. I forget what they call it, symposium in Berlin or
Mhm.
somewhere in Germany. And they asked her, and she just stood there. I believe that was, correct. Yeah. I forgot what the question was. What would, I can't remember. It's something like, what would you do? I'm sorry, guys. It left my brain.
No,
If it comes back, we'll bring it later.
I love what Bo said. Like it's like listening to a freshman debate student. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. She just doesn't know what she's talking about, and I think she Googles everything right before she goes on stage before, and then she just gets. It just isn't. It's not a good look. But these are the people that keep getting reelected. They're appealing to very uneducated people, even though they're supposedly the party of education. But they're getting degrees in DEI and wokeism and black activism and just things that there's nothing substantial for a mind to grow in any of those subjects. There's just nothing there that's reasonable, logical, or lends towards critical thinking. It's mush, and it's not creating people that actually can have a good thought. Nobody in Democratic Socialists of America are thinkers and can have a good, cohesive, well thought out plan. Like it's one thing to make an admission, it's one thing to make a claim, it's one thing to say this is the problem. It's a whole nother to have an actual viable solution to that. You know?
Can I go through that Pramila Jayapal thing right now? Because I think
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is perfect. Go ahead.
let's do this. So there's a guy on Rumble named Eddie Block, and Eddie is amazing. He got invited to a Zoom call with Pramila Jayapal and streamed it, and I was on his stream. And basically, we were watching her train the next group of activists that come in. So she was talking about, she made very clear that we were looking for nonviolent people, but there were hints like you may have to go to jail and you have to make plans for these types of things. And so anyways, here's the thing that was the most impactful to me. She said, when we talk to the press or when we talk to anybody, your friends, what you want to do is you don't care about what the facts are. What you want to do is you want to figure out how you can connect to them emotionally and tell the story the best in that way.
Yeah.
So facts don't matter. How you spin the story to make people feel bad matters. So I spent an hour and a half watching this thing, and she talked the entire time about emotions and how to get people to react on emotions and how to turn stories from 20 92, and this is a true fact, 92% of the people didn't vote in New York City for the mayoral primary.
Hmm.
It's
Wow.
it's Zohran Mamdani,
Yeah.
great guy, wants to give you free this, free that, free this, free. And so you don't talk about the thing, you don't talk about the hard numbers or the fact. You talk about how to make people, to grab people emotionally. And that was the thing that I took away from it, because that's all they do.
Yeah.
They won't
Yeah.
talk about a fact.
No, that is. I mean, that's just confirmation, right?
Yep.
Facts are not their friends, right? Because facts don't care about their feelings, and feelings is the only thing that matters. And because facts don't care about your feelings, we have to really stay away from that. That's why I love watching Scott Jennings on is it
Mhm.
CNN or MS now? I can't remember. It's one of those terrible things. But you know what? I love him for it, right? And they must be paying him a lot because that guy keeps staying on there. But I love how he's like, but that's not the facts. Like you can try to emotionally tug, and that's even the part of it. Most of these people don't even know that that's a logical fallacy, is to appeal to emotion to try to get somebody to change their view on something without even considering the facts.
Yeah.
You're only talking about the emotion. It's like the appeal to an expert too, right? Because that person, don't just forget what they've done or what they're doing, or just know that they're an expert. Doesn't matter what they're telling you, they're an expert. So believe them. And it doesn't matter what the facts say. If you feel bad for that person, it doesn't matter. If you if that guy is an illegal in our country, and he's raped 3 women and been to jail 5 times and deported 8, and he's back again for killing somebody. You know what? I was reading the story. I can't remember her name. Steinley, is it Emily Steinley in San Francisco?
Yeah.
When
Oh, yes.
Right, you remember that?
Katie Steinley,
Katie
right?
Steinley, thank you. Um,
Yep.
that was amazing. That he's like, you know what? I just saw a gun on the ground and I just picked it up and shot it, and it killed a girl. And the judge ended up finding that he wasn't at fault because, well, it was they charged him. And then another judge, a district judge, said, no, but you can't charge him because he actually didn't have possession of the gun. And he's holding it in his hand. He pulls the trigger and he says, well, he didn't have possession of the gun. You ruled wrong. And so they took the charges away, let him go. And then, 3 months later, he ends up killing or raping somebody else. And it's like, it's things like that where that's just not how judges need to be. Like you cannot rule on emotions. You have to rule on facts. If are the facts are, look, if the defense gave a much better presented case than the prosecution, okay, that's our justice system. There are people walking free that shouldn't be because their lawyer was better than the other guy's lawyer, and there are people that are in prison that didn't do anything because the prosecution lawyer was better than the defense lawyer. Like that's part of the bad, the good and the bad and the ugly of our justice system. Is much better than any other workplace in the world, and in that regard, right? But at the same time, it's going like you're just ignoring the facts here, and it's almost like you're trying to find a way to get this person off on his charges. But at the same time, because it was a sanctuary city, then they look at this in a whole different way. They don't even view it from just a typical, black and white justice, and these are the objective facts. They look at it as like, this is a person who is in our city seeking refuge in sanctuary. They're persecuted. They are oppressed. The oppressor is the government. It's Donald Trump. It's whoever. And you know what? We have to protect them at all. And they completely forget about the victim. Completely forget.
Did we? Looks like we may have lost Danny here for a second. So, but he's absolutely right. I'll try and pick up where he was talking. We do lose. Um, we do lose when judges make decisions based on emotion. It has to be done factually in order for our society to work. But again, hearing that from Mia Jayapal right from her mouth, talk about focus on emotion, not on what happened. Tell the best story you can to influence people. That was her That was her comment. And I've seen her do that in congressional hearings. So I find it very, very interesting. I'm a facts person. I like the facts. All right. So we talked about AOC a little bit. We talked about Bernie Sanders. Let's talk about Comrade Mamdani. As I said, only about 8% of the eligible voters from some statistics I saw in the New York City primary voted. So you get Zohran Mamdani. You also have ranked voting, which is an interesting concept as well, which kind of helps certain people. So Mamdani was elected. We see the things now. Mamdani's an interesting person because he's part of the. You guys know what the Green-Red Alliance is, I would assume, right? It's the Islamic folks that believe in conquest, matching up with the communists and the socialists. So Mamdani is kind of both of those things. So we have a unique look at what he's doing. But Mamdani does a great job, in my opinion, at selling what Jayapal talked about, getting people with emotions. He goes out on TV and talks about sticking it to the rich. That I can't. Is it Ken Fisher? I think is the gentleman's name. That he was standing outside of his house. He went on and did a video and talked about how he was going to tax the heck out of Ken Fisher. Now, I think Fisher may pull his company out of New York City altogether after that, but we'll see how that all turns out. But Mamdani is putting these policies into place in New York. He has started the process of taking buildings from landlords, which is to me kind of crazy. That he doesn't believe should have them, because of course he doesn't believe in private property, so he wants to take those. Danny, let's see if I can get you.
I didn't know if you had
in
gone,
here.
if you had gotten taken off, or I had gotten taken off. Do you hear me?
We're going to have to probably, let's see. Maybe we'll have to. I wish I knew how to use this system. I don't. So, there it is. Got you back.
There we go.
We started talking a little bit. Yeah, you froze.
I guess I was the one that froze. I thought you froze, and then you left, or at least it looked like you left, and it looked like you kicked me out all entirely.
Yeah, I think Josh may have done that
Just when I thought that I was doing good by being upstairs and not downstairs in the basement.
You're okay. It's okay. We started talking a little bit about Mamdani and how he is both part of the Green-Red Alliance, and he's both parts. So we talked about him taking away. Steve didn't do it. We talked about him starting to take away buildings from landlords and those types of things. So I'll turn it right back over to you, because I know you have a lot
sounds
to say
good.
about that.
Yeah, we're about to get to him real quick. I just wanted to hit on these things, though.
Sure.
Just appealing to why it appeals to people is because there's real things happening in our lives that lead us to listen to people say things like free college, free education, free healthcare. When student debt is real, right? Housing costs are real and high. Inflation is really high. Healthcare costs, right? Young people aren't able to get homes, right? Part of that, I think, is also they're having a hard time with jobs, and I think they've been lied to. A lot of these folks that are going to these universities, getting these degrees, thinking they're going to come out, but the degrees they're getting are not ones that are helpful, or is there even really in the job path for them. But anyways, when as far as Christians, when we're talking about the biblical worldview, well, we want to be compassionate, right? We want to be generous, and we believe in justice and caring for the poor. So this is where I see Christians giving more sensitivity and more a listening ear to people like AOC and Bernie. and saying, you know what, maybe I don't quite understand the abortion issue or the LGBTQ issue, and maybe I don't even really care about that as much. I do care about the fact that I am paying high rent, or my grocery bill is through the roof. You know what? And man, this guy Bernie and AOC and Mamdani and Talarico, they got some really nice stuff that sounds really good. I could use some free groceries, and you know what I mean. It's so we just sort of got to sit back and look at some of this stuff and go, all right, that is appealing by all means, but is it beneficial? And we don't ask that question. Is it beneficial? And the second question, right? How are you going to do it? Like, you have to think back and like, somebody's got to pay for this. You tell me I'm not going to have to pay for this. Well, how am I not going to end up paying for this in the long run? If you look in scripture as well, you got like Acts 4, Peter tells Ananias the property was his before he sold it, and the money remained under his control. A lot of people like to use the beginning of Acts for socialism. They think, oh, they just all shared everything together, right? And I'm wondering, oh, okay, I thought I froze again. I was like, oh no.
Oh, you're good.
But they use Acts as this idea of socialism where Jesus was a socialist, which is ridiculous. But no, they owned their property. They just chose to share it. Like he's telling them, Ananias, it was his property, but he also said that he was going to share it. And so there was a commitment that he had on that. And so if it says you shall not steal, that means somebody owns it. And it wasn't the government, so you can't. They're talking about you shall not steal from another person. So like there's these implications where we can't sit there and apply socialism to the Bible, but we also can't sit there and go, well, you know what? Again, I have some student debt, and if I could just have a president come through and sort of nullify the loan that I signed, that I agreed to, and I signed on, and just make it all go away, because that's the guy I'd like to vote for.
Yeah.
It's a thorny, hard path to take, but it looks very, very smooth, and it's not. So let's go on. Let's talk about Mamdani. So much has been happening with him lately. Oh my goodness! Just so you know, with Mamdani, ideas have consequences. I mean, he is the poster child for this, and it will, I think, as his administration continues, it's going to continue to show. The stuff that he's trying to do, the free buses that's never panned out, the grocery stores that are going to flop and fail. And it will show that his ideas have consequences. It's already showing with the mass exodus, which has been going on already in New York City. Now it just got worse at it. He just doxed some 900,000 people or 90,000 people, or is a large number. Was it 900,000? And people that don't even fall under the peer, the how do you say that? Pierre de
I don't even know.
Yeah,
but I know.
the French sounding word tax, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't even fall under that, and he just threw out their addresses. I mean, even the guy that I guess some guy that voted for him lives in New York City. He's a influencer. He's on podcasts. I think he's a politician too. And he was like, he just was having this very serious conversation with somebody, and he's like this. I don't understand. Like, he just put my address on this list with 900,000 other people, and it just. I mean, what is he doing? Why is he doing it? And it's like, come on, man. I mean, this is where you have obviously not followed socialism at all in history and communism at all in history. This is the things they do. He is in power. He's in charge. And in his mind, he even says this. He says, I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist. There is nothing capitalist about that. So you go ahead and throw that out the window. He's not doing anything that is American that you would be used to in one of the greatest cities, or at least was one of the greatest cities in the world. Right? I mean, New York City, man, this guy is not only is he a democratic socialist, he's a Muslim, he's anti-Semite, he's an anti-Semite. I mean, he's doing everything to show. I mean, he does not care. He does not care. He says to be a democratic socialist is to believe that democracy must extend beyond the ballot box to the rest of our lives. These are his own words. That is a quote from him. What does that actually mean? He doesn't just simply say government should protect our rights. He says that democracy should extend into the rest of our lives. The philosophy perfectly mirrors what the DSA stands for. You read that just not too long ago. It's their own definition of economic democracy, extending the political influence into economic and social life, not just to the ballot box. So his idea on here's some quotes I want to throw out there about some things that he said. This is coming from his inaugural address. And let me tell you, one thing I can say, like Trump, when Trump says something, he means it, and he's not trying to hide anything. Neither is Mamdani. He is absolutely not trying to hide anything. You hired a socialist, New York City. Expect him to act like one, because he even said, I am going to govern like one. He says here, he goes, beginning today, we will govern expansively and audaciously. Okay, let me say that again. We will govern, that's the government. He is the government in New York City, pretty much. Expansively, meaning we're going to expand our government influence and control, and audaciously, meaning not apologizing for it. We're going after it. Full stop. He says, we may not always succeed, but never will we be accused of lacking the courage to try. To those who insist that the era of big government is over, it is amazing how he just boldly says this. He says, hear me when I say this. No longer will City Hall hesitate to use its power to improve New Yorkers' lives. So in plain English, government should aggressively use its power to solve society's problems. Full stop. What's the biblical worldview? Government is God ordained. It does not jump into the sphere of social life or family life or church. Its authority is limited. Scripture also gives primary responsibility to family, the church, and individuals. Those are equal spheres. So again, we're looking at an anti-biblical worldview here. He says also, for too long we have turned to the private sector for greatness while accepting mediocrity. I would love for him. See, this is one of those statements where give us the proof of how the private sector is mediocre in comparison to the government. If that's the case, then stop contracting out for military weapons and contractors that are private sector companies that are contracted with our military. Just get rid of them, because if that's the case, then if the government's so much better and our military can produce so much better, why are they going to private sector companies to contract with them to do a lot of the work for them? He says, let me go back. For too long, we have turned to the private sector for greatness while accepting mediocrity from those who serve the public. I cannot blame anyone who has come to question the role of government, whose faith in democracy has been eroded by decades of apathy. We will restore that trust by walking a different path, one where government is no longer solely the final recourse for those struggling. Is no longer solely the final recourse for those struggling, one where excellence is no longer the exception. Plain English, government should become the primary institution people trust to solve their problems. I mean, it's just, repeating over and over again. But the Bible tells us it values honest work, private stewardship. I just read some verses about that, right? Voluntary generosity, not coerced generosity. My dad had said to me once, he goes, you know what? We should tax. I'm okay being taxed a higher rate because we need, whether it's better roads or we need better this or better that or whatever. And I'm like, I should not be forced to put into something that honestly is not going to produce anything better. I mean, I'm going to pay the government more money for mediocrity. I'm not getting a better product from the government. I'm just not. It never produces a better product than the private sector, ever. And at the very least, I can bargain my way. I can choose what I want to put my money towards or not. When it comes to the private sector, if the government owns everything, I only have one choice. In this whole healthcare one for all, right? I mean, like, look, you're stuck in it. If it goes bad, you're stuck. You have no other choices. And so the Bible does not even speak to these things. Limited civil government. Government serves society, not the other way around. It's not meant to replace everything else. He says, for much of our history, the response from City Hall has been simple. It belongs only to the wealthy and well-connected. This is the shtick, right? Those who never strain to capture the attention of those in power. Working people have reckoned with the consequences. Crowded classrooms and public housing developments where the elevators sit out of order, roads littered with potholes, and buses that arrive half an hour late, if at all, wages that do not rise, and corporations that rip off consumers and employees alike. What does that sound like to you, Jim?
Communism.
Absolutely. And a lot of charged emotional rhetoric.
Yes,
Like
and emotions. Yeah.
a lot of what he's saying here is just statements that he's making, but it's not as simple as he's talking about it. Matter of fact, though, public housing is run by the government. It's public housing. The transportation system is run by the city. It's public transportation. You're just calling out your own what do you call it? The negatives about your own ability,
On
your
deficiencies.
own deficiencies. Thank you. Yes. Right. So in plain English, what is he saying? Society is framed primarily as the privileged versus working people. And that's how he starts this whole section off. You're in this condition, not because it's city transportation or it's city housing. You're in this because of the wealthy people that are well connected. Did you hear that, this whole rent control housing that's going on, who most of the people living in those rent controlled housing establishments are? Wealthy. He's
Politicians.
just opened a loophole for wealthy people to pay less and to get what he's supposed to be giving to those who don't have the ability to pay.
The interesting thing is Hakeem Jeffries, while he was in the New York City Council, or it might have been the state government, basically passed a law that saves him $900,000 a year in taxes because of it reclassified a place he's living or he owns.
Yeah.
So I mean, Mamdani's doing the same thing. He's giving people. See, what people don't understand is it's either going to be our betters are either going to be, or what they claim to be our betters or elites are either going to be private people or it's going to be the government. It's going to be one or the other, because when you move to communism, there's still a class of elites.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's no middle class, right? That's
Right.
That's been the driving. That's been the unique characteristic of our country, is such a strong middle class. Now we can discuss whether or not it's got a little weaker, or there's times when that's going to fluctuate. That's always going to fluctuate. But there is no country in the world that has a middle class like we have.
No.
And yeah, we have a poor class. Yeah, we have an elite class. But I would rather take my chances with the middle class than to try to structure it to where I'm going to go after the elite to try to build the middle class. Never happens, never will. We don't have any examples of that ever happening in history. And the other thing that amazes me is that they think that you can tax 100% every single billionaire in our country, and they still aren't going to help our debt. They're still not going to take care of all the taxes. They're not going to. They already pay the majority of the taxes already in our country. And so, if you want to simplify the tax code and you want to do something about that, and okay, then do that. Do something about that. But don't think that you're helping anything by taxing the people that are actually giving us jobs and product and things like that. Okay, so what? They're greedy. Did you become a politician and stop being greedy?
No, he didn't, because he's wealthy. Look at the wealth that he came from. But
yeah,
I was watching something on Sweden, because of they were talking about how they've never been a communist country, but they were, they had some social programs.
Yeah.
And what they do today is, which was shocking to me, wealthier people pay a lower percentage of tax than the non-wealthy, because they're trying to influence them to gain more wealth so that they don't have to pay as much tax to the government.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but so they're doing the exact opposite of what they're being used as an example for now. In the 70s, they used to tax the heck out of the rich people.
Yeah.
Now let's say I'm the elite, I may pay 15% of my in taxes. You're, I just out of college, you may pay 25%.
Yeah. That the one thing that people don't realize, like, everybody thinks that everybody that's wealthy is greedy, and there are. But one of the big reasons why they're so wealthy, and you don't, this whole idea that they inherited their wealth, very few people actually inherit their wealth. And some of those that do inherit their wealth have been working in the family business for almost all their life anyways. And so they inherited something they worked for, not something that they just,
Right.
I always think of Paris Hilton, right? Like, she actually does work. I mean, I may not like a lot of the choices and things she does, but she's actually created herself a business. Yeah, she's going to inherit, her and her sister will inherit dad's stuff. But it's not like that she just, is just this rich person that's just done nothing with her life. She's made some questionable choices in her life, but
Sure.
she is doing something with her life now in terms of working and understanding that I want to work. But people that are wealthy work to grow their stuff. Like, they make so much money. Yeah, they do have quite a bit of money, but that's very little compared to what the company will hold in order to put it back into the company to continue to see growth in other areas. And this is where you got people with portfolios that own various businesses and are doing various things with their money to continue to grow and to draw wealth. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care if you want to be wealthy. I don't care. Good for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but most of them are, the reason why they're wealthy is because they've learned how to manage their money. They've invested their money very well. They've created more wealth, more jobs than anybody else in the country. And you got politicians like Bernie Sanders, who's created no wealth for anyone and has created no jobs for anybody. You look at Obama, he didn't do that as well. Biden didn't do that. None of these guys have done that. You look at Trump, guess what Trump did? Trump has created wealth for his family, yes, but he's also created a lot of job opportunity and wealth for other people. I'm going to listen to that guy when it comes to business. Okay, so he's had some bankruptcies. He
Yeah.
is a billionaire. That's expected to happen. Okay, not saying he's made all the best choices, but he takes risks. But not to get on the Trump train, but at the same time, I'm not going to listen to you, Mister 50-year politician. You've not created any work for anybody. You've always been a government employee, and that's just not good sound advice to me coming from somebody who's never done it.
The other thing with Trump is we do have some short-term pain, right, with
Hmm.
tariffs and different
Yeah.
things. However, if you look at why he's using the tariffs, it's to bring good jobs back here for people.
Hmm.
He's not lining his pockets or
Yeah.
or doing it with having the government run at a surplus.
Yeah.
He's bringing businesses, he's bringing factories back here,
Hmm.
which is the mistake that we made, right?
Yeah.
Outsourcing it all. It's going to be painful to bring it back, and we are
Yeah.
experiencing some of that pain. I
Yeah.
mean, our economy could be, our cost of living could be a little bit lower, but
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot lower in 2 years.
Yeah, and that's the peak that people want to be impatient. They think this stuff happens right away.
Yeah,
The policy. That's why I vote policy over personality every single time, mostly because the policies are going to be long lasting. It takes a couple, years to 5 years for them
yeah,
to take effect, as long as they're not, revoked or written out by the next president. And a lot of times that happens, but it's we can look at immigration and see how that worked out. Trump
right,
had put in a good policy of the no return um, policy on immigration. Biden gets rid of it, and then next thing you know, we have millions of illegals coming flooding into our country. Like, those are decisions made by a president that happen pretty much immediately. But like you
right,
said, there is a spigot that has been on full blast when it comes to social services, social welfare, right? Just billions of dollars is flooding out, right? The wound is gaping, and you know what? It's going to take some serious actions to stop the flow. That's going to be painful, and it's going to take some time. But somebody's got to do it.
yeah,
Somebody's got to do it before it gets way too out of control, and we can't come back from this. Which we're pretty close to that right now.
we are, yeah,
So Trump's doing everything he can with the time that he has to do what he does. The couple other things Mamdani says on the topic of collectivism, and that is a wonderful Marxist term. And if for too long these communities have existed as distinct from one another, we will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity, and I did an entire series on this statement right here on the warmth of collectivism. He says, we will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. That is a phrase straight out from Marxism, from Marx, Karl Marx. He says, if our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it. That is one of the things that the woke left loves to do, is group people, give them grades on their level of victimization or oppression, and then intersect them, and that adds more points, to your score. And the higher the intersectionality and victimization or oppressed score, the more of a victim you are and the more you should get. And that's what happens when you collect people together. And yeah, you know what? As the body of Christ, we believe in the community, but my salvation is dependent upon me and my relationship with God. And my ability to serve is dependent upon me and my obedience to serving God and others. Everything that I do is not based, if I can gain my salvation through my parents, well, first of all, my parents aren't saved, so I would not be a Christian. But I had somebody else in my family, or if I went to church, am I saved because of the collective community at my church? No, I am not. But my walk with Christ grows because of my attachment to the community of Christ, to the body of Christ. So that's where we have to find that balance. But we are individuals, and we are at the very end, when Jesus comes back and the great white throne judgment happens, I'm only going to stand before Jesus on my own account and not on anybody else's, or nobody's going to stand on mine. And the only person that's going to stand in my place will be Jesus Christ, because he's my substitute. And he did that. But it's just between me and him, everything else, all my community, my Christian community that I'm a part of, I am a part of that for my growth and for their growth as Christians. But this whole idea of just rejecting individualism, for the sake of the collective, you're never going to satisfy everybody. And nobody wants to realize that. I'm a part of this group over here. I'm a part of this group over here. These groups are fighting these groups. I mean, even in the LGBTQ, we see many LGBTQ fighting the T.
Yes.
Like, they're starting to realize I'm no longer a lesbian if there is no idea of what a woman is. It doesn't make sense. And there are several people I know personally that they're like, my sexuality is my sexuality. There's no reason I should go into a classroom and tell an 8-year-old anything about what I prefer sexually. Nothing. And this, the ability that people are doing this, and the idea that this is okay for, like, if I teach class, if I were to say anything to my 7th and 8th graders about my sexuality, I am way out of bounds. Number one, personally, I would just think that. Number two, they would think I'm way out of bounds. But if they came into my classroom and they were to talk about their sexuality because they're part of that, alphabet warrior group, then you know what? It's okay for them to do it. So the double standard is crazy, but this idea of collectivism, from a Christian standpoint, you do have community. We reject selfish individualism, okay? But the Bible also rejects making the state the center of community. God builds our societies through families and churches, voluntary charity, and limited government. That's how our societies are built. That's what the founding fathers even desired. So he talks about the DSA movement here. This movement came out of this movement, he's talking about him and the movement that he created getting into the office. That's sort of the context here. So he says, this movement, my movement, me getting elected, came out of 8.5 million somewheres. Taxi cab depots and Amazon warehouses, DSA meetings, curbside domino games. The powers that be had looked away from these places for quite some time, if they'd known about them at all, so they dismissed them as nowhere. Plain English, he's saying he openly identifies that his administration is a DSA administration, and that's the movement. And he's not hiding it. He already said it at the very beginning. He talks about redistribution. Here, where the language of the New Deal was born, this is his words, we will return the vast resources of this city to the workers who call it home. not only will we make it possible for every New Yorker to afford a life they love once again, we will overcome the isolation that too many feel and connect the people of the city to one another. That sounds so nice. I mean, wow, like, he's just such a wordsmith, you know? But what does it mean? Government should redirect economic resources towards workers. So does that mean the workers become the elite? Then what happens when that happens? Well, not all the workers are going to become the elite. We know how that works. You know, most of them will be staying in bread lines. A few of them, if they're smart and they align with the right people, will end up in the elite. And I don't know.
As long as they're not revolutionary, because if they're part of the revolutionary that go out into the street and do the fighting, they're going to be dead.
Yeah.
They're not going to. They're going to get executed.
Yeah.
So there's a whole long list of bad things that happen to the people that bring this into being, unless you're way at the top or not involved.
Right. Absolutely. Did you have you seen, or maybe I don't even know if you've heard, but on Angel Studios they did do an Animal Farm, a cartoon version of Animal Farm. It was written, maybe it was directed or produced by the guy who played Gollum in Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And Andy Steckus.
Yeah.
Anyways, he directed this movie, and it's sort of, it's not really geared towards kids, but it's like, it looks like a kid's movie. It really does. But if you are sitting back as an adult and you're watching it, and you're just watching the pigs take over and all this stuff happen, and the frustration, like you can see that this is happening right now in cities like New York City or LA or, you know, Seattle, Portland, you know, Chicago, and I can go on and on and on, Detroit, Baltimore. Like, it's happening in cities not too far from us, St. Louis, right? Indianapolis, in its own sense, is having some issues, you know, when it comes to the Democrats who are in control right now, and those who are running our city. So it's you know, when we look at the Bible, it affirms private property, stewardship, generosity, care for the poor, but does not assign government the primary role. He says government is a provider. He says the cost of childcare. Oh, here's another sensitive emotional issue. The cost of childcare will no longer discourage young adults from starting a family, because we will deliver universal childcare. See, there's that word universal, for the many, by taxing who? The wealthiest few. Those in rent-stabilized homes will no longer dread the latest rent hike. Why? Because they're wealthy. I'm sorry, that was my ad in. They're wealthy. There's nobody living in those homes that isn't wealthy. He continues, he says, they won't dread the latest rent hike because we will freeze the rent. Well, good job. You just did that for probably, you know, several millionaires living there. He says, getting on a bus without worrying about a fare hike or whether you'll be late to your destination will no longer be deemed a small miracle, because we will make buses fast and free. That's not happened yet. And that was one of the things he said was going to happen first. They started on it, and it just hasn't happened. It hasn't come to fruition. So he's blaming
Kathy. He blames Kathy Hochul.
Yeah,
it's not his fault. It's Kathy Hochul's fault.
He didn't get the money in time, or she's not giving over the money, right?
Right.
So he's saying, again, government should provide more of life's essential needs through taxation and public programs, and you just can't tax the wealthy enough, especially when they're leaving your city in droves. We, again, going back to this idea for us as Christians, compassion, right? But Scripture primarily entrusts the care of families and communities, not to the government, to families, to churches, and voluntary generosity. It never goes to the state. It's not something that the state's supposed to be in charge of. He loves to redefine freedom, but it's hard to notice it, really, if you're not really paying attention. He says this: these policies are not simply about the costs we make free, but the lives we fill with freedom. For too long in our city, freedom has belonged only to those who can afford to buy it. Our city hall will change that. So how does he redefine it? He redefines it as access to government provided goods, services. That's how he redefines it. Okay, I want to read that again. These policies are not simply about the costs we make free, but the lives we fill with freedom because we made them free. right? For too long in our city, freedom has belonged only to those who can afford to buy it. Our city hall will change that. Our city hall actually will give you your freedom, which AKA will put you in bondage.
Yeah.
If you don't vote for us, you're going to lose all this, right? Isn't that what they're going to say? Get everybody so hooked on the free things. And then when the Republicans come along and say, this is not sustainable, guys, we got to change this. They're going to wait. Oh, wait, I really like my free stuff. Not really realizing it's not free. I mean, unless you're poor, you don't have the money. You weren't paying taxes in the first place. So you're relying on the middle class and the upper class to pay your taxes. So what does it matter to them? They just keep voting Democrat. This is why we are in the state we are with many of our cities today. Bible says freedom is rooted in God-given rights. You mentioned that before, right? That's one of the big sticking points. The DSA does not say it's God-given rights. It says it's government-given rights. Government is the one who decides. And that's so scary, man, when I'm putting in the hands of another human to decide my freedoms and my rights. That's terrifying. Let's see. I'm gonna do one more. Democratic socialism. Again, he brings us up. We will govern without shame and insecurity, making no apology for what we believe. I was elected, again, here's that quote. I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern, as a democratic socialist. I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. As the great senator from Vermont once said, wonder who he's talking about. What's radical is a system. I wish I could do his voice. What's radical is a system which gives so much to so few and denies so many people the basic necessities of life. I wonder, did Bernie get a degree in language, like branding and messaging?
Bernie spent a lot of time in the Soviet Union, and I'm sure that they educated him on that type of stuff.
That makes total sense. That does.
Yeah, it's kind of like Karen Bass going to Cuba all the time.
Oh, yeah. Or what was his name from Minnesota going to China?
Walls.
Yeah. So the biblical worldview, guys, the question is whether government begins assuming responsibilities God distributed among the individual, okay, or the family of the church, or the civil government for that matter. Scripture presents government as one institution under God's authority, not the primary instrument of society's flourishing. So those are some quotes directly from him. So this is what I love about Mamdani, and I'm glad I don't live in New York City. He is going to be the perfect case study. I thought California was the perfect case study, but Gavin Newsom is I'm going to choose whichever's most popular. Now, I don't know where he actually is. I just know he's a Democrat. I'm over here on the far, far left, but then sometimes I'm going to have a podcast and back away a little bit.
He's all over the place.
Yeah, he's all over the place. But when we're talking about things, we're going to really see what's the rent freezes producing. Does he ever actually get the free city buses up and rolling? And what's that costing? Who's paying for that? Is universal child care, again, how's he paying for that? Those municipal grocery stores that he's planning on doing, how's that working out? And I'm really curious to know where the food will be coming from. Who's going to be supplying the fruit? Who's going to be supplying the food? Is he going to contract with some corporations, which is going to be interesting? Like, if the government's not producing it, so I have a feeling, I'm just thinking, just like the military contracts with private sector, I almost bet he's going to contract with a private sector grocery business, or multiple ones, to say, hey, we'll give you government money. You're going to get your money, but you need to give us your goods. We're going to get your products, because you know what? We don't want to have this nasty stuff that we could do, but we want to have the good stuff to prove to people that it's still good quality food.
I think he may go to the producers.
You think?
I think he may skip the middleman. Yeah.
I'm wondering. I'm curious to know how well that's going to go, because there's so many things in a grocery store that people want.
It's crazy.
Especially people that are on, SNAP and things like that, getting like Cokes and all of that stuff. You could go and get Walmart kind of Cokes. I get that, but I find it very interesting to see if it's not going to serve them well. They're not going to be able to make any money by giving them what they're producing. They're going to get, that's how you end up with the vegetables that are going to expire much faster.
Right.
You know, my father-in-law goes and picks up bread from a place called Waste Not, Want Not. And he's picking up the bread that nobody else wants. Now, they're giving it away for free. So he's picking up bread and he's trying to get it family as quick as possible. They already know that the expiration date is either there or coming soon.
Right.
They're not buying it or anything, but he's just trying to help families out. And so we've gotten stuff from him, you know, that he's just like, I got all this stuff. I need to get rid of it. And that stuff actually has lasted pretty long, but it's not the highest quality of stuff. It's definitely not the healthiest stuff. But it's also stuff that does go bad pretty quick. It's not quality. And let's see. So higher taxes on wealthy individuals is not going to work. Expanded public spending, that's going to happen. Greater government involvement in everyday life is going to have to happen in order to keep doing this. So this is his plan. Housing is going to be controlled by government, food by government, transportation, government, childcare, government, healthcare, government, economics, government. You have no choices. Even your taxes will be controlled by the government, which in some way they already are, but it's going to be inflated much more. There's a lot of issues in all of that. Go ahead.
Well, remember, he's going to redefine what wealthy means when the real wealthy people leave.
Yeah.
Right. He's going to go to the maybe not the elites, but to the wealthy people. Then when they leave, he'll go to the middle class. He's going to get his money.
Oh, yeah. So I want to address a couple of those things because, again, rent freezes, does that sound good? So let's just look at that real quick. Rent freezes sound compassionate. They may help existing tenants in short term, but economists across the political spectrum have warned that prolonged rent controls often first discourage housing construction. So you're going to lose that. Discourage maintenance, reduces investment. It shrinks the housing supply and eventually worsens the affordability. So we're going to come full circle. It may help us in the short term, but in the long term, we're going to end up with worse affordability and the homes. I mean, you've seen pictures. You look at some of these communist countries. Are they the nicest, coolest looking places? No, no, they're concrete bricks, and that's what they look like. They look like prison barracks, right?
See, initially, he's going to want some of that to happen so that he can take those properties away from people.
Yeah,
they just passed a law which is going to help him. Like if you decide you're going to sell your property, you have to give an NGO the opportunity to buy it first. So he's going to do
which means you're not going to sell it for much. Yeah, you're going to get lowballed.
Yep.
They're going to compel you to sell it. Let's look at this idea of municipal or government-owned grocery stores. Idea sounds compassionate. Again, okay, that's the whole point. They're really pouring on the compassion. It's to help families afford food. Who could oppose helping families eat? But we have to ask this question: why should government become a grocery store operator? If government's operating housing, grocery stores, transportation, childcare, healthcare, education, what major area of life remains outside of government? Where's the limiting principle? It's not limited. That's the whole point. But we have to look at, again, when we think about grocery stores, we have to look at the bread lines. We have to look at the other countries that have tried this already, and it's never worked out well. I was listening to Morning Wire, and somebody was talking about how there was a place, I can't remember, it was in Florida maybe, and they actually had a government owned grocery store. It did well for a moment, but then it never produced us. It was always operating at a negative in the red. Eventually, the workers all left, and the place shut down, and it ended up not lasting very long. People thought it was great as far as I can get my groceries, and but it didn't even have good quality foods. The shelves were rarely stocked, often empty. But yeah, it's been tried before in another state apparently. If you can find it, did you find it?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Yeah.
Okay. While you're looking for that, let me know when you find it. Higher taxes. Mamdani has repeatedly argued for substantially higher taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations to finance all of this, right? But again, this isn't simply about taxation. It's about the worldview. Does prosperity primarily belong to those who created it under God's blessing and stewardship? Or does government increasingly become responsible for redistributing it. And there's not enough money to go around, even through just the elites. I mean, economists have already, pointed that out. There's just not enough wealthy people to sustain a country of 300 million. You got AOC's vision. She says capitalism has not always existed in the world, and it will not always exist in the world. Well, she is a brainiac, I tell you. But the system we have and the one we have, though not perfect, has been the best one so far. And until people go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I found it.
Okay, what is it?
They just closed 7 government subsidy stores in Chicago.
Wow. Oh,
Yep.
How long? When did they open?
Geez, it doesn't say when they opened, but it says they just closed this year.
Okay.
Chicago invested $13.5 million.
That's a waste of $13.5 million.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. I'll see if I can figure out when it opened.
So, anyways, AOC making the statement, and it's sort of ironic with her statement. Capitalism, it hasn't always existed at the same time. Socialism, she's trying to bring in, is going to destroy it and destroy our country. Here's a question: how do we improve free markets to what should government take over next? I mean, free markets, the word free is in there, and it is. It's free to make the choice of what markets you want to support and which ones you don't. What things do you want? What products do you want? Do I want to go to Walmart? Do I want to go to Meijer? Do I want to buy Nike or do I want to buy Adidas? I don't like Starbucks' ideology. I'm never going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to boycott Starbucks because I have the right to boycott Starbucks. But if I boycott, the government's grocery stores, and that's the only grocery store within 100 miles of my house, then I'm essentially committing my family to starve because I have nowhere else to go. It's the only one that exists. I have to go there now. I have no choice. Now, there are food deserts. I get that. But at the very least, you're going to see grocery stores as towns grow be built. I can go to, maybe there's 2 different convenience stores at the very least I can grab milk in. I don't like that one over there. I'm going to go to this one over here. It's just not like that when you don't have that choice. It's the same thing with healthcare that I know that people have such a big problem with Obamacare is you don't have a choice. I have to. I lost my doctor. I did not get to keep my doctor like he said. So now I have to go with this doctor because I don't have the money for it. And I definitely don't want to pay these premiums that you want me to pay. But at the same time, I'm not given a choice anymore, so I have to. And they're still working. I mean, that's going to be the next thing, right? They're still working for that universal health care. And it's a train wreck, absolute train wreck.
So those stores didn't last 2 years. So and the total amount, the 13 million was just to renovate some spots. Right. They actually spent $26 million on the deal. And
so doubled the amount to renovate, but as the whole thing was all said and done, $26 million down the drain for all the taxpayers that paid for that. And I'm sure it wasn't just the wealthiest that paid for that. I'm sure they spread that out. Oh man. Yeah. It's just a train wreck. So economics isn't the only worldview issue because that's what we've been talking largely about, but America has historically welcomed immigrants. And so we have to talk about the immigration issue, right? So our founders never expected people to abandon their culture or heritage. When they founded this country, they expected people to continue to seek Christian principles and to live as best they could. Now, I would say they weren't naive to think that it was going to remain perfect because humans are humans. But this assimilation to America's constitutional principles is something they did expect. It wasn't come here, do what you want. It's come here and assimilate into what our Constitution says, our way of living, our way of life. Yeah, you may be from this country. That's fine. Like you can hold on to those cultural identities, but you're in America now. And so, yes, we do speak English here. That is a country speaking all different languages is really going to have a hard time trying to communicate and operate as a country. So it's just when you come here, you're embracing equal justice under the law. We're not implementing Sharia law. We're not doing that. Freedom of religion. Okay, I can practice my religion in public, praying on the streets, praying right next to an abortion clinic if I want to without being put in jail. Freedom of speech. I can say the meanest things I want to if I want to. I know you don't like it, but I can still say it. That's my freedom of speech. This idea of trying to define hate speech, I hate it. No pun intended. I just do. I think it's just too hard to do. Constitutional government, that's what we are. We are constitutional government, the best constitution ever drafted. It's not perfect. It is not the Bible. It is not scripture, but is one of the best, if not, it is the best. It is the best constitution ever made. An allegiance to the American Republic, to our states, where we live, the borders we have, the country we live in, the varying parts of our country that have different landscapes and different ways of living to some degree, but still under this umbrella of a republic in America, right?
Yeah. The difference now in the folks that are coming over for immigration is back 20, 25 years ago, they were coming here to assimilate and stay.
Yeah.
Now they're coming here to work for 4 or 5 years, get as much money, or not even work, just collect money for 4 or 5 years, and then go back. You know, you see it. They're protesting not being allowed in the United States with their Moroccan flag.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you carry another country's flag in a protest, you should be
Oh yeah,
out the
absolutely.
door.
Yeah, there you have no place here. And I told, and I don't care, you can call me a xenophobe all you want. I welcome anybody that wants to come in and be an American. You want to come here, you want to be an American. And if you're going to come here on a visa, you come here and contribute to my community, my society, my country. You're not here to do anything else other than contribute. We're not here to take you on as a welfare project. We're not here to take care of your lives. Do I understand refugees? I do. I get that. Okay. But we can't take in every refugee in the country. And here's the biggest thing. If you are seeking asylum and you're in Central America, you go to the country next to you, not all the way across Central America, up all the way into North America to the United States. Go to Mexico. You don't have to you're not coming here because of asylum. You're coming here because of the economy, coming here to try to make money. And let me tell you, whenever we would capture, apprehend people, oftentimes we would process them and then almost immediately deport them, take them to the Nogales port of entry and let them go. Did that many times. And you know what we would say? See you next week.
See you tomorrow. Yeah, or see you next week. Yeah.
Because they're going to be back once they come, but they get everything settled. They're going to come back. They're going to work, and then we'll catch them again in a week or two, maybe a month or two. And I remember catching one guy 3 times in 2 weeks. And I was like, man, how much money have you made while you're here? You know, and he's like, I said, what are you doing with all that? He's like, just taking it back to my family. Just taking it back to my family. You paying any taxes? No, I'm not paying any taxes. Are you kidding me? Taking it back to my family, man. I can make money here and spend less there because the cost of living is so much cheaper, but I can't make money there because I can make a lot more here.
Yes.
And so my family's, you know, almost wealthy in this country, in my country, compared to here, because it's so cost of living is so low, but there is no job. There are no jobs, or, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, it's quite amazing when it comes to the immigration issue. I really hate it when people pay attention to the media and what they say on immigration, because the media has no clue. Actually talk to a Border Patrol agent or talk to somebody who's actually in immigration. They'll actually give you the right answer, the true answer, the true things that are happening. Still on Mamdani, here's some other things that really frustrate me with him. And it's so much more because of 9/11. He has made the Israeli-Palestinian conflict one of his defining issues. It's one of the things he talked about most when he was running for office in his public career. He has repeatedly accused Israel of apartheid and genocide. He has, you know, going back to the whole idea, people don't know what that word means. They have no clue what genocide means. When you're texting, calling, dropping notes from the sky, warning the people we are about to bomb your apartment building, get out now. No country does this. No country in the history of history would warn the citizens to say. And why did they have to do that? If you don't know, people, audience, they had to do that because these guys are cowards. They hide behind their own people. They use them as human shields, and they put their bases under schools, under hospitals, in apartment buildings, because they know that, you know, United States, they're so compassionate. They don't want to kill any civilians. And it still blows my mind that people want to accept the numbers of a Palestinian supported network that is over there giving supposed numbers of how many children, but they're not including the fact that a lot of these are 16-year-olds who are Hamas terrorists. They
Right.
are raised in the Hamas terror. They are out there actually doing killing. Like they're not separating those numbers, and so the numbers are way lower, and that's already been proven. But it's just so frustrating when you
But
see these things. Go ahead.
but even if you look at the numbers out of Gaza from their Ministry of Health, it still shows that it's not a genocide,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Think I showed you something earlier.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of on a chart genocide, bunch of different countries. I forget the one. There was one. It might have been in Africa that
Mm-hmm.
was like 80% of the population was
Right.
of this one
Yeah.
was killed. Gaza's like 2%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Not even close to genocide.
no, and
Yeah.
I mean, I know that may sound harsh, but the other thing, the UN definition of a genocide must include intent. And
Right.
what you just went over shows that they have no intent
Right.
to kill those people.
None.
So
They're doing it. They're oh my gosh. I'm not even. It's so much. They're doing so
yeah,
much to try to help those people. But you look over the course of history when they try to do the peace talks, the Palestinians don't want peace. They don't want peace. They have walked away from the table every single time. It is actually a two-state place right now. I mean, they are the ones that are in control of their that little strip, but they've run it into the ground. Any money that's come in, they've used it to dig their tunnels and bolster and prop up their terrorist organization. And it's just basically a hellhole over there. And it could be one of like and sometimes I really don't enjoy Trump's terms, but it could be one of the nicest places. It could be a very nice area of the world if people would actually say, "Hey, we can do something about this." But it just people don't understand that it is so ingrained generation after generation after generation. The hatred that is growing in these people, it is just fostered from generation to generation. They are not changing their minds about Israel. They're not changing their minds about the West. They are going to continue to do what they're doing because it is a part of their nature to hate these people.
and
Until that happens, until we get that into our brains, we there will continue like Trump continuing. He continues to try to want to talk until they come to the table. Until you know what they're going to keep coming to the table to give you pause, to give them a little breathing room, and then they're going. I mean, I knew that the MOU was going to last not even 24 hours,
right.
not even 24 hours. Vance, I'm so disappointed in him. I think at this point I'm ready for Rubio. Now I'm going on my own rant. I'm going for Rubio. I'm not going for Vance. To think that you honestly thought that that was going to do something. Do you know the people? You've even said yourself, these people don't want peace. They just want to drag you along because all they have to do, and I heard this today, I agree with Walsh, all they have to, and wasn't Walsh, it was the briefing um, with the seminary professor, I can't remember his name. It's called The Briefing, and it's Christian Worldview podcast on the news. Anyways, he says, all Iran has to do is survive. It's all the regime only has to survive. They don't have to win anything. They just have to survive. And that's all they're trying to do, trying to survive. Were you going to say something?
No, I was trying to look up the briefing. That's okay.
Yeah, it's a good little podcast. It's not very long. So Mamdani also supported the BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. He has stated that he would seek the arrest of it. This was so funny. I will arrest Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, if he steps foot in New York City. He doesn't have any authority for that. And here's the other thing: the ICC is a joke. Anybody that's worth their salt, trusts, cares, or even respects the ICC. They have called for Benjamin Netanyahu and the other guy that was there in power for their arrest, but yet they didn't call for Ayatollah. They don't call for people around the world's arrests that are actually committing genocide, that are actually out doing terrorist actions, right?
It's a globalist. It's a globalist. It's a globalist court, and they want Iran to be strong.
Yeah, it's as bad as the UN. It may be worse, but it's the UN's
Worse.
pretty bad too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a joke if
UN's
you sit there and say the international courts, criminal courts, they have just don't talk to me anymore.
by the way, the UN is almost out of money, like legitimately almost out of money.
Yeah, I wish Trump would just get us out of that. I just
I agree.
so stupid. He has also defended the slogan "Globalize the Intifada," and if you want to talk about genocide, right? Globalize the Intifada from the river to the sea, which is an expression of Palestinian resistance. So, Mamdani does not care about the Jewish people, and here's proof. According to NYPD statistics that just came out, more than half of all confirmed hate crimes in New York City target Jewish people. Now, I can't prove beyond a shadow of doubt that Mamdani is responsible for these targeted attacks, but I can associate, by logical conclusion, his rhetoric as the leader of the largest and one of the most well known cities in the world has created an atmosphere for people to attack Jews. More than 200 anti Jewish hate crimes had already been reported during the first half of 2026. Um, they say that I think 50% of the hate crimes, more than 50% of the hate crimes in New York City are towards Jewish people. And their population is single digit percentage points of the city of New York, maybe barely double digit.
I'll find out.
Yeah, correct me on that one. But it's not the majority, I can tell you that.
So it was 60% of Jews for hate crimes, and New York
Thank you.
18% of New York
18%.
City.
Okay. That's crazy, right? 60%
Yeah.
of the hate crimes is Jewish, and they only represent 18% of the population.
Mhm.
That there's something there.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, we spent another. Let's jump to the next um, the next interesting fella, Mr. James Talarico. And honestly, if I'm more concerned about anybody, it's this guy right here, and just how he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is a heretic. He is not a Christian. He is a false prophet, and he is a false teacher. He is everything false that you can imagine, and he is not a Christian. And let me tell you, anybody listening to this, James Talarico is not a Christian. He does not agree with biblical with Scripture. And matter of fact, he is as far left as any of them. So let's talk about him real quick. The religious left, they love to use Christian vocabulary, but they've never really seemed to break into Christian circles. Now, the ones that they do tend to break into, obviously, progressive Christian, which I don't consider Christian, but they're starting to make some ground, unfortunately, in evangelical Christianity, and that's where I start to get a little disturbed because, and this has been my big thing on my other podcast. The reason why we are doing what we're doing is because we see a huge gap between the biblically literate and the biblically illiterate. We're seeing a large portion of those that are biblically illiterate. I just got a book from George Barna, who does. He's got two books. One's about to come out, or maybe has just came out, and then the one that we got at the LifeWise Summit that talks all about this. And it's really scary. It's really scary about how illiterate the body of Christ is, because we read maybe, but we don't study our Bible. So what you believe. So anyways, the left uses Christian vocabulary, and they import progressive anthropology, meaning anthropologist means what you believe about human nature, like who we are, what is wrong with us, what we need, that type of thing. They also bring in economics and sexual ethics from a Christian vocabulary standpoint. The greatest challenge perhaps would be to biblical Christianity today that doesn't even come from atheists, in my opinion. It comes from the progressive Christian left movement. And again, I hate to put those two words together, but that's just how they identify themselves. These are people who speak the language of Christianity, but redefine the message, right? They speak in terms of love, but they completely redefine who Christ is. James Talarico, he's running for Senate in Texas, is one of the most articulate, I'm serious, articulate examples of the religious left, and likely most of the Democratic Party. He's almost, he's like, and it's interesting too, he's a white guy, and in Texas, but because he's so far left, he's like the white version of Obama, just extremely articulate. But the one problem between him and Obama is Obama just sort of spit out. He was pretty on point when it came to Democratic, platforms and stances. James Talarico is bringing up stuff about the Bible that's just wrong. It's just plain wrong. It's not even close to being right. But he says it in such a kind and genteel way that it just sort of passes people's brains and goes straight to their emotions, and it's like, man, but he's so nice, and like this guy Ken Paxton, he's really got some issues, and he does.
Yes,
he does. He is not the guy I would have gone. I'm not a fan of what was his name? Cornyn. I'm not exactly a fan of, but I would have much rather had Cornyn over Ken Paxton. But you know what? Trump didn't like Cornyn because Cornyn has gone against him on some things, so he supported Paxton, and now we got this guy who's got a terrible history. Does he stand on the conservative Republican stand? Yeah, but I don't know if I can trust him. Does that mean I'm going to vote Democrat though? Absolutely not. If I was in Texas, I wouldn't.
It's just one of those things, though. I mean, is that stuff real, or is it like the stuff they did to Trump, or is some of it real and some of it not? I need to research better.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, again, this is stuff to research. Some of it was just he's defended himself against it. And he's like, that stuff is not true, but the perception of it is not good either. And then there's other things like, no, that's just a flat out lie. That's not even true. But he did get caught in some things. Lost his seat or something like that at the very beginning, or was, I can't remember.
He was.
That's why he wasn't. He was under investigation.
He was under an impeachment investigation.
Yeah.
For his current role.
So James Talarico, like he's the guy he's going against, and he frequently quotes Jesus. He always talks about compassion. He's always talking about justice. Like he's hitting all the key phrases. He's always talking about loving your neighbor. It's not whether or not those things are biblical. They all are biblical. But the question is whether Scripture is driving the politics or the politics is driving the interpretation of the Scripture. And it's the latter, right? Yeah. So this isn't, when you're listening to Talarico, it's not about whether or not we should care about the poor. Of course, we should. This is about whether the Scripture is being used for progressive purposes in politics and just setting a stage for him. So we do often get quotes from Jesus about Jesus on the poor, but they ignore Jesus on sin. They don't ever bring that up. You won't ever hear them talk about that. They quote prophets on justice, but they'll ignore the prophets on idolatry, sexual immorality, all of that stuff. They'll quote Acts 2, right? Acts 2 is that verse where they all the disciples and they share their stuff. They take care of each other. They take care of the community. But they don't understand that that's done out of voluntary generosity, not because Rome required it. They quote their love your neighbor, but they redefine love as affirmation. So I can love my neighbor, but also not agree with his lifestyle. But that's not cool for them. So we have to be objective when we look at Scripture, and we're looking at what Talarico and others like him are saying, that Christianity is not the Republican Party. It's definitely not the Democrat Party, but it's definitely not the Republican Party. So we have to separate this. We just can't go, oh, I want to listen to James Talarico. I'm going to vote for him because he sounds so much better. Like, you should really question what he's saying because he's just outright lying. So some quotes that he says, one of the things he repeats the most, the powerful want us looking left and right instead of looking up. Okay. All right. But he argues that billionaires and corporations and the wealthy elite benefit when Americans fight each other. He says Americans should unite against concentrated economic power. I mean, what does that honestly have to do with looking up? It has nothing to do with looking up. You just sort of bait switched on the language. So he set this framework, And the problem actually becomes that those at the top versus those at the bottom. But this isn't biblical. This is not how, when we look at anthropology and we look at human nature from a biblical standpoint, it's not about top versus bottom. It's just about human sin. It's just about our sinful nature. Okay. And so it's much closer to a class analysis in Marxism than it is a biblical analysis and understanding of what God has told us. For the wages of sin is death, right? None, all shall perish. None have been able to save themselves. Like, we can't do this on our own. We need Jesus. Scripture condemns oppression, dishonest scales, which he brings up, exploitation, partiality. It does, okay? But it never teaches that society's primary divide is rich versus poor. It teaches that it's God and us. And God wants to dwell and be with us. Therefore, Jesus had to come down and die for us.
Yep.
Sin is the thing. That's the thing. And he never talks about that. He never, if you ever listen to him, he never talks about sin. In 2026, in a conversation he had, it was described, his mission, like his overarching thing, is described as reclaiming Christianity for the left. Like that, what is that? What does that even mean? It shouldn't be about reclaiming Christianity. First of all, that's not the point of a Christian. Number two, it's not about left or right. Okay, nobody owns Christianity. Christianity is born out of a following of Jesus the Christ, not even Jesus Christ. Like Christ is not his last name. Jesus the Christ, which means Jesus the Messiah, and that's the word that was used, Christos, for Messiah, right? And that is what we're called. The IANS establishes us as followers of that. It was meant to be derogatory and is later adopted as a positive thing. Peter's like, hey, embrace it. Like, we are followers of Christ. We're little Christ. We are followers of him, right? So we're not called to reclaim anything for Christianity. We're called to proclaim Christ. That's it. That's all there is to it. And so this taking Christianity and infiltrating it in politics this way, some people are like, well, Danny, you want to bring in Christianity into your politics. No, I'm not bringing Christianity into my politics. Christianity is the lens, the biblical worldview is the lens through which I view politics. Politics is coming, is out here. I'm looking at it from the lens by which my worldview is. That's a whole different thing. Let's see, so much here on this guy. So some of his critics, particularly scholars, it's not even really like secular conservatives. It's not even really just mainstream conservative Christians. Like actual scholars are calling his Christianity backwards Christianity. Matter of fact, in a journal called First Things, they entitled it Backward Christianity. And their concern was not that Christians should ignore justice. Their concern was that progressive politics was this lens that is now interpreting Scripture. So instead of using a biblical worldview and the Bible to interpret Scripture and God to interpret Scripture, the progressive politics are now interpreting the Scripture. And that's how you get people saying, you know what, let's not talk about the sin. Those things, some of those things don't apply anymore. They applied back then. Now it's changed. And you know what? He doesn't talk about transgenderism. So because he doesn't mention the word, it's okay. He also doesn't talk about nuclear bombs. And, so are those okay too? I'm not going to get into that argument, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So this is what they emphasize. Jesus feeding the hungry, loving your neighbor, welcoming the stranger, caring for the poor. And then when they talk about the prophets, it's generally for their concern for justice. That's it. Again, they all sound great, but you're leaving out, like, that's just a very small part of the biblical worldview. You can't just talk about the good without talking about the ugly. And that's the sin part.
Yeah. But the other thing he does, and you probably have some of these, but he makes, he makes statements that are just factually, and you've been talking about factually not true. Like God is non-binary.
Yeah.
Stuff. I mean, and argues with you about it.
Yeah, and he's learned more from Islam than he has from reading Islamic books, Muslim authors than he has from reading the Bible. and
Right.
Christian authors. He says that Jesus helped him get in touch with his whiteness. He has made some pretty crazy. I mean, he is a huge supporter of LGBTQ rights. He is huge on the pro-choice bandwagon.
Hmm.
He is all for abolishing borders. Like he could be DSA. He can honestly be DSA. The problem is he still involves God into it. So he's sort of like how the Democrats are really trying to cover all the bases. And now let me again say this. Let me clarify when I say Democrats. I typically mean the leaderships, the leader heads, those in charge. I'm not talking about, the general citizen that says I'm a Democrat, and that's how I registered. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about those that are in charge. They're like, hey, you know what? We got to look back at this because we got to do everything we can to beat the Republicans and MAGA. We got the Islams on our side, even though the LGBTQ exists over here. As long as we keep them separate from each other, we don't have to worry about those two getting into it. My enemy is my enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my enemy. And so let's keep those separate. But now we got to throw in some religious stuff here, even though most of us are atheists and we don't like God. But you know what? This guy is I mean, I can handle it. I can digest what he's saying because you know what? I agree with that. And the reason why they can digest it is because it's saying the same thing with just Christian language, like we said before. Um,
Yeah. It's. I mean, he's winning in the polls right now.
yeah,
Like,
and
uh,
they said on the podcast, it was on Live Free Nation. He said, there's on average about 8 million Texans that don't vote in midterms, and the last election, I can't remember who it was. Was
it was
it
Cruz
Cruz
and
and then
the Beto.
Beto? Yeah, it was a difference of 400,000 votes. Come on, Texas, come on now. I don't know that anybody from Texas is actually listening, but if you are, I know that Josh Howerton, the pastor over there, he's the one that he's like, I don't ever try to tell anybody who to vote for, but don't vote for James Talarico because he is not a Christian. And that's where you recognize a lie, and you don't let other Christians continue to think that this person is actually a Christian when he is spouting lies every time he opens his mouth, or he's I don't believe in half truths, but if we're going to say he speaks in half truths, he'll give you a little bit. Say, yeah, well, technically that is. I mean, compassion is very important to a Christian. But in what context are we talking about? And so that's what's extremely dangerous about James Talarico is he is pulling the wool over so many Christians in Texas in their eyes. And I can see if he wins, this guy's going to run for president.
Oh
And
yeah.
I can tell you right now, it's going to be all out warfare, spiritual warfare. But I mean, it's going to be all out, just guns ablazing when it comes to people. That's like this guy's. You think he was bad now, but his doctrines, like so many people, I can see just coming out, just destroying him on his Christian beliefs. But then we've allowed the progressive movement to move so far and grow so much without actually stamping that out to actually, you know, say, hey, no, you know what? We need to start teaching the people the Bible and discipling people so they can know. But we've
Yeah.
allowed that to go for so long. The progressive movement's such a thing now that it's going
Yeah.
to be really hard to stop, you
Yeah.
know?
And I agree with you. I think Talrico is the most dangerous.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
because he meets all the metrics for the far left,
yeah.
even for Muslims, even though he's a Christian. Like there's a lot of things there that they will respect on him, even though says he's a Christian. But they don't. I don't even think they really think he is really a Christian. I
No.
think they just look at him as the far left guy. But he checks all the boxes for everybody, even for the religious,
Right.
to get their vote as well. That's dangerous.
Yeah. And he's proactively anti-racist enough to get to pass that one too.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well, I mean, he's all for free stuff, and when you're all for free stuff, man, it's one of the things that I love that there's a lot of minorities coming to the realization. Like when we want to talk about woke, they're waking up and realizing this whole idea of free has done nothing good. for my family, for generations of minorities that have been voting for this stuff. Um, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. But
And,
it's just it's not quite the amount of people I wish would catch on.
well, when you see that spark, or when you see them figure it out, like I've seen them on videos looking at something and go, "Oh my God, I've
Yeah,
been wrong this whole time," and it just clicks for them. So
yeah,
hopefully we can get a few more clicks before
yeah,
in the
yeah,
next 90 days or whatever it is.
yeah. It's the political climate right now is very, very interesting. It's I'm not worried. Honestly, I'm not worried. And what happens, what happens. God's still in control. And if you're listening to me, guys, I'm not trying to fearmonger or scare anybody. I'm just trying to bring awareness, because when we get to our last episode in a couple of weeks, when we do our last episode, I am going to bring up Islam, and we're going to talk about how Islam and American values are just not compatible. And we're not going to we're going to talk about the people that adhere to Islam, but we're going to first talk about the principles of Islam first, so that way you know what that stands on. Okay, because again, there are people that say they're Christians but aren't Christians because they pick and choose. Again, that's going back to that being a syncretism, where you're buffeting certain things. I like that part. That's what James Talarico is doing. I like this about Christianity. I like that about Christianity. I like that. The sin stuff. No, I'm not touching that. I'm going to leave that out. That just doesn't appeal to me, and it doesn't fit into my worldview. So I'm going to leave that one out. There are Muslims that do the same thing. Okay, there are Christians that actually do the same thing. What we're going to look at is the belief system itself, the worldview itself, and then we were going to talk about, you can't talk about the worldview without talking about how has this unfolded over history, and where are we at right now when it comes to Islam and the various factions within Islam, the countries that Islam appeals to. So we'll talk about that, and then we're going to talk about how America, to some degree, is becoming what the founders feared. um, we've just like they decided to leave and go across the ocean and come here, we've got states talking about separating from parts of states like Oregon wanting to move over into Utah, or is it Nevada, something like that. Parts of California want to break off from parts of California. Just things like that. Just even in Canada, there's places in Canada it's like, can we just become part of the United States and separate from Canada? You're starting to see people want to leave where they're at because of what is going on in their communities or in their states. And that is exactly what happened 1776, why they came over, why they established the colonies, why they got away from all of the stuff that they're doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to talk about, this is the hard part, the church's failure. We're going to talk about how the church has dropped the ball on this. And we've got to, because there is responsibility laid at the foot of the church. That's me. That's, whoever is listening to this and you consider yourself a Christ follower, we have to be aware of how we have failed as the body of Christ over time, but what we can do about it. And that's when we're going to talk about there is hope. There is hope. It's not too late. And even so, no matter what happens, Christ and God, Jesus is still in control, and He is still coming back, and there is hope. So we're not going to end on despair, guys. I'm not going to do that to you, because there is still hope. There's always hope when God's involved for us. So, well, what do you think, Jim? You think that got through some stuff?
I think we got through some stuff. Yeah, that was good. A lot of information, but I like the way you we're able to tie a lot of it together. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, man, I just have so many notes I just bypass because I get too inundated with notes.
Yeah.
Well, I hope for all you guys out there, Jim, do you have anything you want to add? Say, leave everybody with.
Look, it's important. Like we talked about, we have to get up. We have to get out and vote. We have to do this. We have to influence people. We have to talk to people, and we have to do our research and figure out what the right who the right person is, right? And as we talked about, it's policy, not personality.
Yeah,
That's it. And
absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for everybody in the chat. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for just being a part of the conversation, listening. Again, hit like, subscribe, share this episode. We've got 2 other episodes prior to this one. We've got the 4th part of this coming up in a couple weeks. We're going to bring Jim back for that one too, and then hopefully Josh will be back with us. And we're going to end this thing on a high note after we get through some of the tough stuff. We're going to end on a high note. But hey, I tell you what, guys, I firmly believe that things make sense in this world if you have a biblical worldview. What does that mean? It just simply means that the Word of God, the 66 books of the Bible that have been written by 40 different authors over a span of 1,500 years on 3 different continents in 3 different languages. Let me tell you, there is no game of telephone that can even compare to having a collection of books, a library of genres to share one common theme and story and character, and that is the person of Jesus Christ from beginning to end. And when you read it, when you dig into it, when you say yes to Jesus and the Holy Spirit fills you and can help you really work through some of this stuff, I'm telling you, there's no worldview that makes the most sense out of life in the universe. So I just want to leave you guys with that. You all have a great night. Thank you again for joining us. And hey,
Before we go, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Before we go, we got a raid coming.
Yeah, let's do it.
We got a raid coming. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm done, man. Let's rate it.
Okay. Yeah, we got a raid coming up. For those of you on YouTube, Twitch, thank you for joining. Rumblers, we got a raid coming for you.